Okay, good morning. Welcome to Ocean Eutrophication, Acidification section on Sunday morning. And I know that I still see the quite large audience. Okay, I guess everyone here they care about what is happening in Hong Kong, the marine water. We have eutrophication, we have acidification. Now we know that there's a cross-harbor swimming. Okay, everyone said that the water quality improved. Yes, after the HES program, it improved. But what is the status there? Is that really that good? Can we do something? Okay, I think that this is very important for long-term sustainable development in Hong Kong. And today, we will do it in the format the same as yesterday. We will have 4 talks. The talk from Professor Dai, expert in eutrophication, acidification, in this globally. Okay, he's a global well-known scientist in this field. We also have ladies and gentlemen from EBD, AFCD, to introduce to you what is the status, what is the the problem in Hong Kong waters, and then I will do some of the introduction too if we have time. But then we will conduct the roundtable discussion. Okay, and everybody can give your own opinion and identify your concern and so on. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dai to start the section. Okay, please welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to thank again Professor Gan and the conference organizer to invite me over here. And also thanks for coming for listening to the talks and the discussions in Sunday morning. So further to my general introduction yesterday morning, I tried to elaborate a little bit more about marine environment ecosystem around this area. And I tried to put a perspective that ecosystem-based management as a sustainable way for development. Again, I'm Minghang Dai from Xiamen University. I need to point out anything like that?
I think a good idea is using this one because the both sides can see.
All right, okay. Try to give you an overview of the Pearl River Delta in the Hong Kong waters. I think it's some of the statement will be, I just read through. The ocean and life in the ocean shapes the feature of the Pearl River Delta. Without ocean, as I said, Hong Kong would not have been a Hong Kong. The ocean supports a great diversity of life and ecosystem in the Pearl River Delta. The Pearl River Delta, the marine water covers about 4,000 square kilometers in the marine area. In Hong Kong, we have about 1,600 square kilometers. It's 1.5 times larger than the total land area. And Hong Kong alone has the 1,200 kilometers of coastline. So it serves the key social and economic activities. The ocean and the humans are inextricably linked in this delta area, and under pressure from both the land, the ocean, and the climate change. So that's one of the topics of these themes of this conference. So this is kind of an overview, okay? I try to walk you through, the marine ecosystem, the Pearl River Delta, and give you some of the perspective of the ocean, acidification, eutrophication, climate change, stuff like that. The current practice, under my understanding about in Hong Kong and elsewhere, give you some of the case studies, So I put some discussion in perspective. One of the biggest problem, as I said, is the eutrophication, essentially the excess of nutrients leading to blooms of the algae, and also that leads to the oceanification, hypoxia. So those are the global interrelated environmental issues. There's many overarching question: what drives hypoxia, why it's persisting, and how these OA here is the ocean acidification. I will give you a little bit the introduction in a little bit. And what the ecosystem impact of this eutrophication, hypoxia, oceanification. We know the CO2 problem. One of these is the warming. And a little bit, the CO2 is a greenhouse gas. It's lead to the warming of the Earth. And we have a milestone of the atmospheric CO2 level in May, back 5 years ago, in May 2013, hit the 400 ppm. This is a milestone because last time the Earth had this type of the level of the CO2, human did not exist. So this is a dramatic change of the sign for this. And we were listening to a lot of the talk about the IPCC special report of 1.5. So that's gives us another alarming that 1.5 degrees is as a target, ideal target for the Paris Agreement. It's not long, okay? Won't last long. It's the earliest year the Earth will reach that point of the warming will be 2030. So it's only 18 years away, and we would still be alive, and your next generation will be mainly facing this type of challenge. So this is one of the CO2 problem. Another CO2 problem we call ocean acidification, because the ocean has been mitigated 40% of the atmospheric CO2 arise from the fossil fuel burning. So that CO2 is acidic. If you drink Coca-Cola, actually, that's give you acidic. So this will drive the pH drawdown, and also one of the major ion is calcium ion concentration. That's the basic material foundation for the calcium carbonate formation. Coral reef is one of the immediate impacted system. So if you look at the ocean acidification impact, it impacts the buffer capacity, but the ocean has a big reservoir for uptaking this atmospheric CO2. And ocean acidification will degrade this capacity, and also a lot of ecosystem impact, metabolism, calcifier, for example, corals, I just said, a lot of chemistry of the ocean. So this is the, also I highlight here, since the Industrial Revolution, the hydrogen ion concentration has increased by 30%. Okay, this is a big increase. Okay, if you read the pH, because log scale, it's about 0.3 units, but in percentage, the hydrogen concentration is 30%. By 210 to 100, the increase will continue up to 150% as compared to the pre-industrial level. So this is a dramatic change of the ocean chemistry, and then the whole thing of this the ecosystem. Related to warming, this is the ocean oxygenation, deoxygenation. We call it deoxygenation of hypoxia in the coastal zone. That means this ocean losing its breath. I attended this meeting because Ken was also a scientist for Kyoto Declaration, and try to alarm people the ocean is losing its breath. That means losing oxygen. We all know the importance of oxygen for human being and ecosystem marine life. Just to give you a number, if you warm the seawater by 1 degree C, you lose 2% of oxygen. Okay? So it takes millions of years, the Earth, to build up the oxygen level, because the early Earth didn't have any oxygen. It's an anoxic condition. And then because of the life, photosynthesis, they produce oxygen. And also, nowadays, the modern ocean or modern Earth, the ocean produces more than 50% oxygen the Earth needs for the life, to sustain the life, okay? But oxygen deoxygenation is not only related to warming, but also from this land input, the eutrophication for the coastal zone, like the Pearl River Delta area is also related to eutrophication, excessive biomass production. Thinking of the biomass would cause the hypoxia or deoxygenation. Two of the big examples we have is one is the Gulf of Mexico, and one is the Changjiang of the Shanghai area. If you calculate the surface area of the deoxygenation of the hypoxia area, it's amounts 13,000 square kilometers. That's 10 times larger than Hong Kong area. So it's a big bottom water lacking of oxygen. You can imagine what's the consequence of this type of the deoxygenation. And the impact of this deoxygenation hypoxia impact the pelagic ecosystem diversity, ecosystem service, also change the sediment redox, the pH and the oxygen will change the redox condition of the sediment. That will very often stimulate the secondary pollution, because the substrate pollutants with the reduced pH condition, you will have the enhance the dissolution of this metal, for example. So it will change the redox secondary pollution and also stimulate production of the greenhouse gas. So that's put the feedbacks to the climate system. Okay? Ground challenge in studying or solving coastal eutrophication hypothesis, there's many issues. One of the, of course, the science, and one of the quantification, because policymaking wants to quantify the assessment, and also you need the predictability in space and the time of this eutrophication in order to solve remediate these problems. Many implications for this type of research. We have if you talk about the new waste treatment scheme, fishery farming, safety, environment deterioration, hypoxia, ecosystem degradation, biochemical change, and the ecosystem-based planning and the governance. So these are the type of the things both in research and also policy making. Back to Hong Kong, we are having issues, I think. This is one of the EPD's long-term monitoring data. We see this decline in oxygen, and also based on, I think Professor John will talk more about this Ocean Hong Kong project, theme-based project. We see this Hong Kong and Macau area, every summer you see the low oxygen area, and in this area it's about 2,200 square kilometers. Again, it's bigger than the Hong Kong territory. And associated with those oxygen, you see the bottom pH. This is the pH, okay? The pH is lower. And this is saturation state. The saturation has to larger than 1 for the coral or shellfish to grow healthily. But this is also important. And some of those, you see the below 1 number, this is a very alarming environmental condition for these corals of shellfish on many ecosystems. A little bit of the science, we are trying to quantify what the major cause of this eutrophication related hypoxia, and because both the nutrient will stimulate phytoplankton growth, this biomass sinking to the subsurface will cause consumption of oxygen. Also, you have the land-based sewage or organic pollutant. That's oxidation of this material, degradation will also cause. So, distinguish both these two processes is extremely important in terms of the remediation and policy making. So you don't have to read the, just tell you the results. In this system, in the Pearl River Delta, around Hong Kong, Macau area, 60% of the organic material caused the hypoxia, low oxygen, is from the nutrient. So eutrophication-driven hypoxia is about 65%. And the rest, about 35% of this stuff is coming from the land. Okay? So this is important. You have to control the nutrient or control the sewage discharge. And associated with the deoxygenation, you will see this pH drawdown. That's the oceanification process. It's very dramatic. Again, this is about 0.3, 0.2. Again, the 30% oxygen, hydrogen ion concentration, because it's brought into this system because of this hypoxia. And we're talking about climate change because this is pre-industrial pH and oxygen relationship. We have a slope. That means pH will draw down along with the oxygen decline. Okay, this is the current scenario. And in the future scenario, actually you see this slope is getting bigger. That means under future scenario, where you have the hypoxia, you will further enhance the oceanification in this type of the marine systems. So put together, you have a lot of process control the hypoxia and oceanification, and this is requires the quantitative understanding in order to make the policy and the right remediation solutions. The main drivers for this, we are talking about the eutrophication. You see the GDP is the population. The GDP is one of the primary driver, and also this fertilizer, this is the nutrient, generate the nutrient discharge into the system. And also, one of the new thing in the area is agriculture. You see the control of the fertilizer is being affected. So nitrate is actually becomes constant. But the agriculture process is seeing the phosphorus enhance the phosphorus input to the system. So this is one of the new development in this region. Also, because we are living in Hong Kong, based on the Hong Kong project, Ocean Hong Kong project, we see this very localized discharge. It's very much related to sewage discharge. You see both from ammonia, it's very high ammonia, okay? And this is the sewage of the amino acid. That's the indicator of the sewage discharge in the system. So the hypoxia oceanification in this region is both related to the nutrient discharge and the organic pollutants from the Pearl River discharge, as well as the Hong Kong very localized the input source, okay? So this is something important. Thank you. So to summarize what we have been seeing a study, low flow river estuary in the Hong Kong, Macau water have been experiencing increasingly anthropogenic pressure. It is certain that seasonal hypoxia has been developed. This seasonal hypoxia will be persistent with expanding scope for the years to come. Mechanistic study ongoing, but yet to be conclusive. If the current trend continues large scale, hypoxia will likely spread to the entire area and will cause severe ecological environmental damages. A little bit put in the management, the ecosystem-based management perspective. I think because the SB, sustainable growth economy, one of the hope opportunity I would see. It's fine. Ecosystem-based management is a multi-factored integrated approach that strives to maintain healthy, productive, and resilient ecosystem that provide goods and service required by the resident and migrant user population. So necessary, if you frame the concept, you have to include the human beings. We also term it also as a growth economy because develop and conservation And in a sustainable way, this is the only solution for the future for both the human society and marine ecosystem. So this is a new form of sustainable development, built from the green economy, and has become a new key engine for innovation-oriented growth in the major coastal countries. And one of the key concepts hoped for is the decoupling between socioeconomic development and environmental degradation. So that's the way we should pursue for the future. I have been reading, I'm not an expert in the Hong Kong region, but I tried to read a little bit Climate Action Plan. I don't read it, but highlight we have started to consider how best to meet the challenge of sea level rise. And if you look at this focus, it's quite an ocean focus. But if you read the contents of the Climate Action Plan of Hong Kong, it's pretty much land-based or land-focused. Okay? But Hong Kong has done a lot of work in trying to preserve or conserve the ecosystem, and Tony will talk about that. I won't get into detail. But essentially, we have this Hong Kong 2030 plus environmental protection and conservation for sustainability growth. The question is, of course, again, is how well the science is known. And major management practice, we included the marine water quality monitoring, sewage charge, regional cooperation. These are also very efficient and actually a very good practice to move towards the sustainable development. As Professor Gunn was talking about, implement, it has served very good service to the Victoria Harbour and adjacent series, but still I think Hong Kong has been discussing about the PAS 2B, and so one of the big questions should be proceeded, has been reviewed already, and if Hong Kong is going to proceed this new initiative, how could do that? To my understanding, the current understanding knowledge gap towards the ecosystem-based management for this big delta area, because I have shown you there's increasing anthropogenic pressure with seasonal hypoxia, and the mechanistic and the quantitative study ongoing, but yet to be conclusive. This is science apart. And I do think long-term monitoring is insufficient. Global change and impact not sufficiently considered. So this is exactly this topic of this conference. Management yet to be integrated in ecosystem knowledge base. Impact to be assessed. Basic information sufficient, I think, to frame towards an integrated and the ecosystem management planning for Hong Kong and the big delta area. I see the missing components towards this ecosystem integrated management methodology not fully established, I think, in this area, because you have the sewage discharge monitoring, but it's separate in parts. I think in Hong Kong area or the big delta area, interagency protocol yet to be framed. Transboundary particularly challenging. We were dealing with Macau, Hong Kong, Guangdong, for example. And impact assessment system cumulative level is missing, because this is the foundation you want to frame this ecosystem or sustainable planning. Global change has not been fully considered. Climate change, I won't get into detail, I'm sorry, it takes too much time, but elsewhere, people are doing the similar things. And one of the examples is San Francisco Bay. They started, San Francisco Bay is the second largest estuary in the US, okay? You know this Silicon Valley, all this stuff are concentrated in this area. They started very early, in the 60s, okay? But there's still issues remain, okay? And so major ecosystem-based management efforts are still underway. It's not fully established. So we are not too behind in this area, okay? And one of the very critical step San Francisco Bay is considering is the climate change as well. So we try to bring in the climate factors into this consideration about ecosystem management. This area, I leave Professor Gunn to talk about. We are sitting in the middle of this river, estuary, and shelf system connected in each other, and also under the impact of global change. We are facing challenge. This is from Chinese Department of Environment Protection. You see this coral river actually is among the worst in Chinese coastal systems in terms of environmental quality. And we see from time to time, one of the example I'm showing is the fish kill incidents a couple of years ago in Macau and the Zhuhai region. And I suspect it's related to hypoxia. And one of the earliest study in the US, one of it actually, the upstream and the downstream is connected, integrated. If you remove for example, in this case, if you remove phosphorus upstream, the hypoxia and the bloom will be dry downstream. So we are not, we are connected. This is the key message. Okay. Fertilizer is the main driver in addition to climate change. So China is targeting to zero growth by 2020. It's an opportunity, but still, if you look at the history of the fertilizer usage by since the last 40 years, with 4% growth annually, this is a huge pressure put into the whole coastal system. And the big picture is, are we facing the tipping point, or are we close to the tipping point of the marine ecosystem of the ocean? I have been highlighting the importance of the ocean and the connectivity between the ocean and the human being, but we are yet to be confirmed. It's a tipping point or not. It could be, but we have to do more. So I get to this, we have discussed about the gaps and the challenge towards sustainability of the marine ecosystem. I think there is all range of the knowledge gaps and the challenge of the knowledge transfer, technology transfer, investment, governance, and again I will highlight science and knowledge and technology. No science, no sustainability. And we also have to take into consideration regional local development with the relation of the deliver SDG, Sustainable Development Goal of the UN. 14 is for the ocean. And there's no magic solution. I think this is the only way we do, like this conference has been doing, communication, interaction, cooperation, innovation. I see this as a whole, both knowledge and technology transfer. And we need investment, both the private and the public sectors, to solve this problem. And coordination, partnership, and the governance, all important for this solution. There's no single linear solution to this complex the environmental ecosystem. I think, again, if you step back a little bit, foundation, this type of conference, it actually build up the human capacity to literacy and understanding, and also the knowledge, and we build a partnership between science, academic, industry, government. So final concluding remarks, the Pearl Delta is experiencing the increasing pressure, and you have to do good science, the research, you have to do interdisciplinary, you have to focus the local study in the context of the region and global change, and you need a better infrastructure for long-term observation and modeling works. And also I see the opportunity for Hong Kong, the Delta area, for rural economy and the ecosystem-based planning. But this has to be science-based. And one of the last questions I'm trying to throw out is Do we need a consortium supporting and sustain the PRD, Pearl River Delta environment? Thank you very much.
We will have a discussion, but happy to take a quick question. I think when it is your memory is still fresh and warm. Anyone have any quick question want to ask? Well, we can end with. Oh yes.
Okay. Professor Tai, thank you very much for your view about this region. So you have traveled everywhere. You have seen many estuaries, coastal areas. So do you think now Hong Kong is the hottest spot for highly vulnerable to climate change? Because hypoxia is here, and as you said, the Pearl River discharge and the local discharge. This is a unique.
Yeah, I think it's a tough question because if you want to distinguish both the climate change impact to this system very at local scale and also from the land, I think it's yet to be conclusive what's the portion is attributed to the current global climate change and the regional access. But the phenomena, the facts are there. So we have to dig into more research, and again, the infrastructure for long-term research. And this is the only way because ocean environment has to be based on both observation and modeling. EPD has accumulated quite a good sort of the information, so that's very helpful. That's why we have been quite a deep, in-depth understanding of the system, along with other studies in the region as well.
By the way, this is the RV research vessel from Xiamen University. They just built a 3,000 tons research vessel. Hong Kong, we don't have that. Okay, we can afford it, but we cannot make
It was
it.
taken from a drain, so it's a real picture, no?
And Professor Tai is so nice. You see the first one, RTC. Can you?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe we move to next one. Dr. Chu from EPD. Okay. Dr. Chu is one of important stakeholder to our home ocean HK project. Both Dr. Chu and Dr. Liu from the AFCD, we have met this week. This is the second time we met. So how you see how strong the interaction between the academic and stakeholders. Well, feel free to take your sandwich, tea, coffee. Okay. I think that this will be more relaxed and have fun. Okay, so let's welcome Dr. Chu, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this workshop on a Sunday morning. Welcome to everyone who first come to Hong Kong also. This morning, actually this workshop, it talks about ocean acidification, climate change, and these kinds of things. But I was asked to give a talk on a slightly different perspective. Basically, what I'm going to exchange with you or share with you is about the Hong Kong, the pollution in Hong Kong. That's what I'll ask you this morning. Okay. So I'm from EPD, Environmental Protection Department of Hong Kong SAR, and I'm going to share with you something about water pollution or our coastal water, the water quality of our coastal waters. Well, talking about pollution, I think to put it in a slightly different perspective, what we used to say is how we manage the water quality. How we manage the water quality of our rivers, our reservoirs, our coastal waters, and our oceans. Well, in Hong Kong, when we talk about water quality, the first thing we want to approach it is what are their intended beneficial use. In this way, what are you going to use this water? If you are using it for a particular purpose, then you have a particular requirement, or then we need to protect it up to a certain water quality requirement. For example, if it's just for drinking waters, then you have a more strict requirement. If it is simply for navigation, for port use, then the requirement is slightly different. So, beneficial use is our key point in talking about water quality management in Hong Kong. And as you have known, we have set up some water control zones. And for each control zone, we have a water quality objective. I will talk about this later on. And then I will share with you some of our plans and measures that we have done to improve the water quality in Hong Kong. And well, some regional cooperation, as Professor Tai said, we are in the middle of the Pearl Delta region, and we need to share with all the other stakeholders. So for those who are new to Hong Kong, there's our coastal waters. Actually, 60% of the Hong Kong SAR, our area, are marine waters. We also have some beautiful inland waters, not much, but we also make use of some of our rivers for secondary contact recreation use. If you come visit Sha Tin, then you know that there's a large, basically somehow an artificial river or large channel, and more of the people enjoy walking there, and some do the canoe, all kinds of things. Hong Kong also has a lot of beautiful bathing beach, and quite famous. For example, Repulse Bay. Many citizens enjoy doing swimming in Hong Kong during the warm summers. So these are the beneficial use, some of the beneficial use. For inland waters, we talk about irrigation in northwestern New Territories. We still have some irrigation. We have some pond fish culture also in western part of New Territories. For most of the citizens, we are more concerned about the rivers, the large urban channels that are running through the Sha Tin district, Taipo, or things like that. For secondary contact recreation use, also for their sightseeing, evening walk after dinner, and we also have some reservoirs for our drinking waters. In general, actually, for most of our rainfall, most of them will be intercepted before they come in the urban areas. They are largely for the drinking waters. although strictly speaking, we relied a lot on Guangdong province for the pollution of the water. For marine waters, different people have different perspective. We maintain the port for heavy navigations, but we have a beautiful beach. In Saigon, we have a lot of secondary recreation activities. We also have 4 or 5 marine park, things like that. And we also have dolphin, if you have seen it. So, how all of this are put into the context of control and enforcement? In this sense, the Water Pollution Control Ordinance, CARe2018, is the core ordinance we use in pollution control. It's an ordinance and added in 1980s. We have different regulations, mainly to control the discharge. We have the civil regulations, we also have the appeal board regulations. It's the core ordinance we use in Hong Kong. It's also under this ordinance, we have declared 10 water control zones in Hong Kong. We declare the water quality objective. We declare how we make the best use of our money and our waters in the interest of the public. Things like that. It's a rough map on the water control zone. You can see that actually is the division between each control zone is basically on a water catchment basis. For each control zone, we have different water quality objective, which is set for marine waters, for inland waters, for all the waters. We have physical, chemical, biological parameters. What's the main purpose of the water quality objective? The main purpose of we have a different water quality objective is to make it transparent on what we are going to do, what we want to achieve, what we think is the best to promote the conservation, the use of the water, the economy, the Hong Kong, and things like that. You will see later on, for some of the waters, which we think the water bodies are more sensitive, their use are more sensitive, then we will have more stringent water quality objective. For some of the water bodies, we think that it may not require such a higher water quality standard. For example, for navigation, then we have a slightly less stringent water quality objective. This is the frame in Hong Kong. So, a complicated table summarize the water quality objective. This kind of information you can always access it in our departmental web. Basically, what I want to emphasize is that dissolved oxygen, the key parameter we heard about hypoxia, low dissolved. Dissolved oxygen is a key parameter in our water quality objective. For nearly all the marine waters, we set a standard of, for depth average dissolved oxygen, we aim to achieve a level of not less than 4 mg per liter. We also know about a depth average may not be very useful because surface water and bottom water may experience different pathway of aeration or consumption. So we also specify for bottom layer of dissolved oxygen. For bottom layer, we want to achieve 2 mg per liter. Okay, this is the framework for Hong Kong. For most of the waters, bottom, we want to achieve 2. For depth average, we want to achieve 4. We also have parameters for nutrients, parameters for ionized ammonia. It's a little bit difficult to understand why we don't set a parameter for ammonia, but we set a parameter for unannounced ammonia. Because back to 1980s and things like that, we thought that unannounced ammonia is the toxic component. So it's more essential to set a standard on the toxic component, unannounced ammonia. If we set simply on ammonia, it's not that helpful because it will be affected by the pH, by the temperature, by the salinity or things like that. The toxicity will differ under different situations. That's why we set unannounced ammonia. We also have E. coli. For example, for those we have living beaches, we have secondary recreation, then we have E. coli. We also have set pH, salinity, temperature, chlorophyll, all kinds of things like that. Okay, I don't go into the details. But what I want to share with you is the water quality objective of total inorganic nitrogen. I think all of you know what is meant by total inorganic nitrogen. In a sense, it's an element that we think is very essential in the promotion of algae or primary production in the marine waters. So we don't set a quantitative objective of phosphorus, but we have a quantitative objective on total inorganic nitrogen. You can see that when we derived the water quality objective in the 1980s, we set different objectives on TRN at different water bodies of Hong Kong. In the northwestern waters, we set a slightly higher standard. In the eastern waters, we set a more stringent standard. In a sense, we allowed the TRN level slightly increase in the northwestern waters, while we want the eastern waters to have a more lower nutrients. One of the main drive for setting up these different standards, the eastern waters of Hong Kong are the most best water qualities in general. We have our corals, we have marine mariculture activities, we have secondary recreation activities in the port shelter. So we want to have it more controlled for the sake of the ecology and things like that. We are not saying that we are not, the northwestern water is not that important. But one of the problems with the northwestern water is that it have a high suspended solid, especially during the summertime for the riverine input. The water dynamic is there, the turbidity is higher, so it can tolerate a slightly higher total inorganic nitrogen. In fact, if we talk about eutrophication or red tides and things like that, we have more red tides in these eastern waters rather than in deep bay, despite the total inorganic nitrogen there usually was higher. Okay. But having said that, total inorganic nitrogen, I agree that it's a very essential, critical problem in Hong Kong. And we have been putting a lot of research work, consultancy studies in reviewing the impact of TRN and things like that. Actually, the consultancy work on this topic is also ongoing. And also we have Professor Gan on a major film project to help us to understand the importance of the nutrients for PRD and things like that. But that's what we are doing now. And okay, talking about plans and measures, what are our plans and measures in Hong Kong to combat, to take care of this water pollution problem? We used to say planning is important. We plan ahead. It's better to plan ahead to stop or to prevent the pollution rather than to cure it afterwards. You can't restore the coral if they are dead already. in taking the planning control, we also have a lot of sewage infrastructures in Hong Kong. In a sense, we are talking about 93% of the population are collected, the wastewater are collected and properly treated by government sewage treatment plant before discharge. We also talk about pollution control as sources. We don't have a large research boat, but this small one is our monitoring vessel. We have been serving our department for 26 years now, and hopefully we will have a new one in 5 or 6 years time, because actually it is not functioning good like that. Yep, hopefully, or artificial reef. Major pollution source in Hong Kong. Well, as you know, Hong Kong is a very busy, highly densely populated city, and so domestic sewage wastewater is a major problem. But as I say, we collect over 93% of all the sewage now. I mean by last year, now, the content of now. Industrial and commercial wastewater. If you talk about commercial wastewater, we talk about restaurants, food shops, markets, and things like that. If we talk about industrial, we don't have that much of industrial plants in Hong Kong, except for those mainly related with our daily life, electricity, power gas, things like that. All need to be pre-treated before they can discharge into our public sewage system. That means that for a particular industrial or commercial wastewater, they will generate a particular type of wastewater by the activities. They need to treat it first before they are allowed to discharge into our public sewer system, and then we will treat the remaining part. Okay, this is very simple, because different industry, different commercial activities have their different characteristics. For the food industry, we are talking about oil and grease, high BOD, so they remove that to a particular standard first. Long source pollution runoff. When we talk about long source pollution, long pond source pollution runoff, we are talking about those activities happening in the street, in the back lane, all kinds of human activities, the dirt, all kinds of things, fresh flush from the climate, the rainwater, all of this flush into our harbor. This is one of the major problems we are facing now, because it's not easy to manage it. Livestock, it supplies that a modern city like Hong Kong, we talk about livestock, but we do have some livestock. I think we have around 100 pig farms and chicken farms altogether still in our northwestern regions. They are a problem. They are a pollution problem. Anyway, how we are going to tackle it under our water pollution control ordinance? In this sense, we have a technical memorandum. The technical memorandum set the standard for all the discharge, for any discharge that you are going to discharge from your premises. Whether you are going to discharge into the inland waters, the coastal waters, the marine waters, or discharge into the foul sewer, you still need to have a standard. If you are domestic premises, if you are normal domestic premises, you are exempted, because the discharge from everybody is similar. Okay, but if you are commercial, if you are industrial, if you are institution, then you need to have a license before you make any discharge. Why you have a license? because we want you as operators to know how and to what level you need to treat your wastewater. Okay? You need to treat your wastewater and meet the minimum standard before you are allowed to discharge either to the public sewer, to the storm, or everything like that. So this is the technical memorandum. Also, if you want to have a look of the technical memorandum, you can have it on our departmental website. We don't print any hard copy nowadays. I purposely include this table just to illustrate the concept of beneficial use. You can see that different water bodies have different standards. So, if you want to set up an operation, you may be interested to know what the standard of that particular location. For example, simply for suspended solid, if you are total, you cannot exceed 15 mg per liter if you are going to discharge into total. But if you are in deep bay to coastal waters, the standard is slightly less stringent. For Victoria Harbour, it's even slightly less stringent. Okay. For BOD, COD, total nitrogen and equalize, all kinds of things. So it's a very complicated mechanism, a very complicated table. You have around 12 tables up to I think 600 parameters at different categories. It also depends on the flow rate. If you have a large flow rate, that means your pollution load is significant, then you need to treat your effluent to a more stringent standard. Okay. Waste disposal ordinance and the dumping at sea ordinance are also two other ordinances that of significant bearing in Hong Kong in terms of pollution control. For water pollution control, we talk about water. For waste disposal ordinance, we talk about waste. Waste can be wastewater or waste materials. It's essential to control also the waste disposed, because the waste, if you don't properly control it, tangle it will generate into wastewater, and that wastewater will generally enter into our environment. We also have the dumping at sea ordinance. In Hong Kong, you are not allowed to dump anything into our harbour, into our coastal waters. All need to be controlled. All activities that will generate any significant impact on the seabed, on the seawater, will be either controlled by the water pollution ordinance, the waste disposal ordinance, or the dumping at sea ordinance. All the three ordinances control the activities, but we have also have this environmental impact assessment ordinance. It controls the future. Environmental impact assessment controls the potential impact it will cause on the environment. If you want to do something, if you want to construct something, if you have a large project, if you want to build a sewage plant, if you want to build something, if it falls within the control of this impact ordinance as a designated project, then you need to go through all the procedures. You need to do the background monitoring. You need to do the background assessment on the potential impact. You need to go through the impact assessment, and you need to have the public agreement. And then you need to do the monitoring during your construction phase, your operation phase, and your decommissioning phase. So this is the impact assessment ordinance. I think I run out of time, so I don't want. Sewage strategy. As all you know, Hong Kong is densely populated. We have many people coming here. So every day, everyone generate a lot of sewage. It's essential to collect them, to properly treat them. Okay. So we have come up with what we call about a sewage master plan. Actually, we divide Hong Kong into around 16 to 18 areas, and then we consider for that particular area what are the intended populations, their distribution, how we can collect their sewage more efficiently, and how we are going to treat them, where are going to discharge. This shows a simple schematic scheme of our sewage treatment infrastructure network. You can see that we have many small rectangular boxes representing how we are going to collect, treat, and then discharge. I don't bother with you all these minor treatment plants, but just want to highlight 3 essential systems here. I will talk about this later on. The total harbor is was quite polluted in the 1980s. So when we are going to handle the pollution problem, we come up with an idea that it's not sufficient to sufficiently treat the effluent. We want to ensure that there's no more nutrients increase in this area. So we built 2 large sewage treatment plants. We collect all the effluents in the Daibo southern area, but we won't discharge them into the total. We build a long tunnel and to discharge them into Victoria Harbour. We transport out all the nutrients. We are still doing that. Similarly, for Deep Bay, we are not going to discharge directly into Inner Deep Bay because we believe that Inner Deep Bay is very important, very sensitive. So we build a long tunnel, discharge them out, although we treated the effluent. HES, for those who are new to Hong Kong, that's our HES. In the past, we have only preliminary treatment before we discharge into the harbour. But nowadays, there are so many people there, so many activities, and our citizens are so eager to enjoy our harbour waters. So 20 years ago, we start to develop this infrastructure. We built long, deep, very deep tunnels to collect all the effluent, and then put it into a small island, a stone-cutter island for the treatment before discharge. This is the HES. It came into full operation on the December of 2016. So it's around 2 years before. That's the HES system. After the HES system, this is the long, deep tunnel because we don't want to remove all the buildings. We don't want to bother with all this land road work. So we use deep tunnel to convey our sewage waters. With this HES system in place, one of the main benefits is that the Gazette beach, the bathing beach in our Tsuen Wan area, we saw it, the water quality greatly improved after we have installed a disinfection system to disinfect all the sewage. It's around 2010. Also, we just have our annual cross harbour swim last Sunday morning. Actually, it's the second event. In the last 5 years, we have our cross harbour swim in the eastern harbour from Lei Yue Moon to I think CARe Bay. But since last year, we have our cross harbour swim from here, from Tsim Sha Tsui to Wan Chai. And we have the second event on last Sunday. Last Sunday is not a very beautiful day. The weather is not that good, windy, cloudy. But trust me, the water quality is very good. I also swallowed a space several months of the seawater during the event, and I'm still standing here, okay. Oh, what's the improvement in water quality in our Victoria Harbour? I just want to highlight this part. In terms of E. coli, it had been very high in the past, but now it's dropped to around 300 counts per 100 mil, which is very, very good. We also found the ammonia nitrogens decreasing, no major change in the BOD. Phosphorus level have been on a long declining trend, but for most Hong Kong waters for many years already. No major reduction in total inorganic nitrogen. That's the Victoria Harbour. How about the western waters? We now bring all the wastewater into our stone cutter and they discharge into the western water. So a lot of people are very concerned. Are we exporting our waste from area 1 to area 2? In fact, it has been for terms of E. coli. When the HES program started in 2000, at a particular moment the E. coli level shoot up because at that time we still don't have our disinfection unit installed. But once we have installed our disinfection unit in 2010, the E. coli level dropped. In fact, nowadays for western waters, the E. coli level is below 100, even better than Victoria Harbour. No major change in total inorganic nitrogen, slightly increased. No major change in ammonia nitrogen due to our efforts. And in terms of phosphorus, well, it's declining. Okay. So much about HES and talking about regional cooperation. Well, I'm not here to sell our cooperation with all other mainland bodies or our authorities, because this is not a very easy task. But what I want to say that we are doing our best to work with everyone in the region to solve the problem they are facing, we are facing, and the best way to resolve it. Just to illustrate some of our achievements, actually we are talking about how to improve Sumjun and Deep Bay, the Hao Hai Wan, for quite some years. Our Sumjun colleagues, our counterparts, have done a lot of work in building up new treatment systems and in treating them. We have also in Hong Kong do a lot of work to improve the problems there, in particular the impact caused of our livestock farms. And I'm happy to say that there's a chance that we will see some improvement in the Deep Bay, even in terms of total inorganic nitrogen. Seems to me that we have slight improvement now. I don't know whether it's sustainable. I don't know whether we need to do more work, but at least what we have done have seen some achievement. The ammonia level is also decreasing. Well, the phosphorus is always low at that time. But what I'm saying is that for Deep Bay, due to its characteristic, it's named as Deep Bay, but actually it's a very shallow bay. It's only about 4 to 8 meters at most. At most. It's very it's mangrove at the upshore, so you can see that it has high turbidity, high suspended solids, and these kinds of things. We can't remove all these natural components. These natural components carry with a lot of nutrients, but we are trying to reduce what we can reduce for pollutions caused by human activities. Return back to a total harbour action plan. It's a large plan we have implemented in the 1980s, 1990s. It's a long list what we have done, to start up with how to treat the total harbor, we build large treatment plants, we stop all the livestock activities. Actually, we also stop nearly all the industrial activities in the Fortan region. We transfer out all the effluent. We stop to dump any sludge there. We plug up all the pollution source. And I'm not sure whether it's successful or not, but it seems to me that the number of reptiles in total is not that embarrassing as in the 1980s. In the past, we may have 40, 30 incidents per year. Now we have around 5. I'm not sure whether it's still to climate or things like that, but I'm happy to see the reduction in the reptile incidents. In terms of water quality, there's also some improvement. We saw once the scheme started, the phosphorus level dropped down. The TIN level also dropped down, but it now seems to be come to a level is around 0.05, something like that. The ammonia level is also very low. Actually, we got out at 0.02 or 5, something like that. The BOD level is very low. It's in general less than 2 mg per liter. So that's what we have achieved in putting all our effort to do the total harbor. And I can see that similar achievement will be seen in Deep Bay, in the Victoria Harbour, and things like that. I'm from EPD, I'm responsible for water quality monitoring, so I feel compelled to say something about water quality monitoring. This is what we want to do. We want to monitor water, we want to assess the compliance, identify the long-term change, then we provide advice on how we can do our pollution. Beach waters. Beach water is quite critical to Hong Kong citizens because many people visit there during the hot summers. So we do our very best to monitor it in a sense on a weekly basis during the bathing season. Also, we publish our results on the map every Friday to allow everyone to have an idea what's happening. In the past, some of the bathing beaches are not that good. You see the red color means very poor. But since 2010, actually, nearly all the gazetted beaches are graded as good or fair. So you can feel very comfortable to enjoy swimming in our bathing beach. This is the annual beach ranking. You can see that since 2010, we don't have anything ranked as poor or very bad. Other than marine waters, we also monitor the rivers. We say a routine marine monitoring program, but actually we monitor also the rivers because these are the pollution source quotient. These are things that we may discharge into the marine waters. So we also have quite a number of monitoring stations or major river stations. Nowadays we have around 82 monitoring stations. We do it monthly. We collect field samples, we do the analysis, all kinds of things like that. And for our real marine monitoring program, we have 94 monitoring stations covering the entire Hong Kong. Also, as I say on Monday, we do it manually nowadays on our monitoring vessel. We visit every pond every month. And for phytoplanktons, we only managed to cover 25 stations. Other than the routine program, we also have some ad hoc monitoring programs. For example, the routine program covered around 80 parameters, but you know that we have new chemicals coming every time, every year, we have new emergency concerned chemicals, and we have new pops and things like that. For this kind of more tricky chemicals, it's a bit difficult to monitor them on a monthly basis because it's very difficult and cost a lot of money and effort to do the sampling, to do the analysis. So we have another special program to do it on a 3 to 5 year basis to do these kinds of chemical monitoring program. If you are interested in our annual report, I'm sorry that nowadays you need to visit our web and download the file, no hard copies nowadays. 2 more slides to go. Clean shorelines. We have worked a lot on cleaning our shorelines. Marine refuse. We have used a lot of resources to tackle the marine refuse. But what are these related with climate change? Extreme climate, extreme typhoon, extreme flooding actually can affect our daily activities, our habit. We used to feel that we are very safe on land. But how about our refuse? How about our dumped materials? Is it safe to just put there before the typhoon? If we have more typhoon, more severe flooding, is the fair chance that more materials or more waste will be flushed into our marine waters? So, as a stop on this, I would say that we tackle marine pollution, but it may be a time to tackle the marine refuse, especially how we stop the source in event of this flooding, extreme climate change, extreme typhoon, and things like that. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Chiu, for very comprehensive and actually information-rich. Even myself, I just first time know many of the details. Well, we can have one quick question before we proceed. We can have a discussion later on. Okay, but quick one.
Still keep the questions.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read friends of what is the reality of the government education?
I'm sorry. Can you a little bit louder?
What is the actual reality on the ground of planning to prevent pollution? Inorganic is a marine park and a site of special scientific interest. Now we have a technical memorandum which controls where you can site septic tanks. Now we don't have sewage treatment systems out in the new territories and rural areas, but we should have as a site of special scientific interest marine park, but we don't. Now the law states you have to site a septic tank 100 metres from a site of special scientific interest. EPD's policy is to allow just 30 metres. There's also a law about siting septic tanks 15 metres on stream. Now, Hoiha is being zoned for planning and building, so what is the Town Planning Board and the Survey and Mapping Office done? They have removed a stream from the map that goes through the area they want to build on. So you're going to get septic tanks 50 metres either side of a stream, which is against the law. So why isn't the law actually being enforced? Our marine areas are not being protected, even though we have an environmental impact ordinance and we have this technical memorandum. So it is a problem. It needs sorting.
Okay, I think we can leave this discussion later on. Okay. You have one quick comment?
Thank you. I just wonder, because in our further development of the city, there will be quite large-scale new town type development in often parts of the new territories, and I have seen that because of the deep bay problem. So how would situation when more population are being, moved to the northern part of the new territory? So that's my first question. The second question is about the exporting the effluent of Taipo and sardine to Victoria Harbour. Mainly it washed the Kaipeng channel. So is there any plan to further, upgrade the quality of the discharged effluent, which will drain into the Kaipeng channel?
Just
You
give
want,
a short
you want to answer it now, or we can probably answer it in the discussion following the talk. You can prepare
I can answer you
quick-
now. I
quick
can
one, because-
just prepare a quick one, okay? So they can have a tea break after my talk.
So we don't have a tea break. You can go over there, take anything you want.
Well, I
Okay.
think,
What-
okay, sorry.
Go on, go on.
I think these three questions are also very good questions, and this illustrate the conflict on the problem we faced, on the need to have planning, and what we can achieve in the future. I do it for the Hoi Ha first. Hoi Ha is now a designated marine park, but in the past this is not. So personally, I do agree that it may be essential for us to review the relevant ordinance there and see if we can better, as a whole, control not only the designated park but also the catchment areas. This is important. And that's also why for the planning and large Yunlong areas in the deep bay area, we need to include this element of planning control. Is the potential cumulative impact for all the surrounding areas. Well, it may be easy to have a new designated marine park and new designated marine park here and there, but we need to also control these surroundings. I think this is also a question we have raised from time to time. For effluent discharge from sewage treatment plant in Taipo and Singmun, Taipo and Shanti, actually they are now disinfected. They should be treated to secondary plus before they discharge into the Kaidat. And I think we will still continue to have that treatment and this transferring out. Although my understanding is that there's a plan to relocate the sardine sewage treatment plant. We have high focus on Kaidat Lava because it's the main area in the future. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Chu. We actually have, the plenty of time later on to have this kind of more broader and in-depth discussion. Okay, and the time. Before that, that we can then listen to what, after the water quality, we can listen to what AFCT going to, the concern. Okay, let's please welcome the Dr. Lee from AFCT. Feel free to take your coffee, the sandwich.
Okay. Well, let me first thank the conference organizer and thanks Professor Gan inviting us coming here to share with you some of the work that AFCT has been doing on, actually not every single piece of the work that AFCT has been doing, but I will be focusing on the fisheries, the aquaculture. And also thanks for Professor Dai giving a very good introduction on the topics and the issue that we are facing. And also thanks to Dr. Chiu for bringing up a very comprehensive work that the EPD has been doing on water quality and pollution issues. So my
presentation, as I mentioned, will be focusing on fisheries, the fish. So why do we care about fish? Well, actually, fish is a very important player in the ecosystem, but not just because of that. Fish is a kind of food for us, for all of us. So with the projection by the United Nations, the population growth will reach to 9.5 billion by 2050. And then the FAO estimated that we have to produce more food, 70% more, to cope with the demand. So basically, we need more food. So where can we get the food from? We can have pork, we can have beef, we can have whatever. It seems to us that the farmed thin fish are amongst the most efficient source of animal protein. So it is a good candidate that we invest more to have more food to sustain, to meet with the food needs that we will be facing with. And actually, for the production of fish, it do contribute to a lot to as a food source for human beings. And we can see that actually the fish production from wild capture increased in the past 50 years and then becoming maybe diminishing because of the over-exploiting or other pollution issues. And then aquaculture here, coming up in the last 20 to 30 years, and making up about 40 million tons of fishery production for the world. And it is expected that the production of aquaculture will have to be doubled to meet our future needs. So what about the fish consumption per capita? So here we can see that the Iceland, they are eating a lot of fishery products. Every single person in Iceland, they consume up to 90 kilo of fishery products in a year. So followed by Japan and Norway, and then China. So what about Hong Kong? Does anybody know? How much we consume every day? Double that. Well, actually, we are not doing the best, but nevertheless. So actually, we are consuming about 30.8 kilogram of fishery products in a year. So every single of us. At this amount a year. We are actually needing more than an average for a Chinese citizen. So are we producing enough to just meeting our own need, not just talk about the future need or the need for other developing countries? So back to the statistic. Last year, actually our local consumption for fishery products is 250,000 tons. But then how about our production? The local production is only 40,000. That means the local production only contribute to 16% of the fishery products that we are consuming last year. So from these 40,000, a large proportion of them came from capture. And we were just producing 3,600 tons from aquaculture, including mariculture, that means the marine fish culture, and pond fish culture. So from these 3,000 something, only about 1,000 from marine fish culture. And the main species that we are culturing is grouper, snapper, opamo, and collier. And the freshwater species, we are culturing grass, carp, big cat, gray mirror, and common carp. So as you can see from this slide, actually, the local production of the fishery products from the aquaculture only amount to 5 or 6% of the local consumption. So obviously, we are not producing enough. So can we do better? So this is the government policy that we have an aim to promote the sustainable development of fisheries in Hong Kong. So in 2006, the government established the Committee on Sustainable Fisheries. And this committee actually, they study the long-term direction and also goal, or the feasible option and strategy for sustainable development of the fishery industry. So what is the goal are? We hope to enable the fishermen and fish farmer to achieve self-resilience and help them to maintain their livelihood and cope with the changing business operating environment, and also providing job opportunity to the fishery community. And these are for the fishermen and the fish farmer. So what does it relate to us? Actually, it's the production. So we need them to produce what we need. So in its report submitted to the government in 2010, the community actually formulated 2 directions to promote the industry sustainable development. The first one is to assist the fishermen to develop or switch to modernized and sustainable mode of operation. And also, at the same time, we have to protect, conserve, and rehabilitate the marine ecosystem and fishery resources. And in other paragraphs, the report also mentioned that aquaculture actually is a good candidate to provide more visible and practical opportunity for fishermen. So our role is to promote the sustainable aquaculture development in Hong Kong. But then, is that easy? Is that an easy task? I think the answer is very simple. As Professor Dai mentioned, we are facing off a lot of environmental challenges: extreme weather, oxygen depletion, eutrophication, ocean acidification, as well as fish disease. All of this will hinder the development of sustainable aquaculture. So talking about the severe storm, I think many of us have experienced the impact from the super typhoon this year and last year. So you can see the video from here. So this is our fish farm. This year, after the typhoon hitting most of the fish farm in Hong Kong. So more than half of the fish farm were damaged. And the heavy rainfall will also affect the salinity of the water. That means in the future, maybe more marine species may be affected. And yesterday, the director of the Hong Kong Observatory has also mentioned the problem with the cold spell. So a very short period of time of very low temperature. Actually, that also hit our industry. In 2008 and 2014, the temperature dropped to below 15 degrees Celsius, and then we have a substantial loss of fish here. And not just the cold weather will affect the aquaculture, but the increasing temperature will also have an impact. We already know that the dissolved oxygen will decrease when the temperature increases. And if, as Professor Dai mentioned, a 1 degree Celsius decrease will decrease 2% of the oxygen, dissolved oxygen. So for many of the aquaculture species like salmon, trout, sea bass, or perch, they have a different minimum dissolved oxygen requirement. So particularly for salmon and trout, they have a very high demand of oxygen. So for most of the aquatic or aquaculture species, if the DO fall below 4 milligrams per liter, then their growth will be retarded. And if below 2 milligrams per liter, it may kill them. I don't think I need to explain how the increase in carbon dioxide will lead to the increase in pH. But I want to point out that for fish, actually the desirable pH would be from 6 to 5.9. And everything below 6.5 will retard growth. And below 4, that will be lethal. And that extends to the impact on shellfish as well. Because the shell formation will be affected when the pH is going down. So I do have to acknowledge that we have oyster culture in the Deep Bay area. So the oyster culture actually giving us, supplying the food, the oyster to us. So if there is a decrease in the pH, then exposed to UV effect. And then how about for the eutrophication? Forming the red tide, actually the increase in nitrogen is one of the factors contributing to the formation of red tide. The red tide can be formed by toxic species. So meaning that these species will kill the fish. So we have the first serious red tide event in 1998 April. It actually wrapped over all the fish coastal zone in Hong Kong and killing 1,500 tons of fish. And then not long ago, 2 to 3 years ago, we have been hit by another fish-killing red tide in the Tola Harbor, resulting in 220 tons of fish loss. So what about if, well, many people will think that it is due to El Nino, because both 1998 and 2015 a strong El Nino year. So is that really responsible? We are waiting for the answer from the scientific community. But still, if the red tide is not formed by toxic species, but a rather non-toxic species, when the algal growth and the biomass decomposed by bacteria, then the DO will be decreased, carbon dioxide increase, which lead to the decrease in pH. So all these will affect fish. People may be surprised at how fish disease may relate with climate change, but actually it did play a role, because when the fish is stressed, the immune system will be weakened, and then more vulnerable to pathogenic attack like parasites, bacteria, so the fish will be dying. And then when we put more medicine or antibiotics to treat the fish, there will be the development of antimicrobial activity. So we are having more nasty pathogen attacking the fish again. So these will all contributing the decrease in the aquaculture production. So is the fishery industry prepared for the climate change? And what is AFCD has been doing or is doing or will be doing to enhance the adaptation and resilience of the industry? Well, I will list some of the examples here, but this is not an exhaustive list. So we have been monitoring the aquaculture environment and red tide. These basically provide us with information that what is happening out there and what we can plan for the next. And we are also promoting modernization and application of the advanced technology for aquaculture, meaning that when we are facing with more severe typhoon, how can the industry can cope with that? For many years, we have been promoting the good aquaculture practice. This actually, one of the initiatives is to promote the use of pellet feed. So when we use pellet feed instead of the trash fish, the nutrient loading will be decreased. Then that means that we are helping the environment. And similarly, we also enhance fish health and disease management to reduce the use of antibiotics or drugs and improve the fish health. And we are also conducting trials to culture more climate resilient species. So talking about water quality monitoring, we are not extensive as what we are doing because we are focusing on the fish only. So we only conduct the water quality monitoring in the fish coastal zone that we have the spot here. In Hong Kong, currently we have 26 fish coastal zones. So we will conduct bi-weekly sampling in 6 of them, and then monthly sampling for the remaining 20. And we also have 5 off-store stations to collect the water for water quality monitoring. And every time we will take the samples inside the fish coastal zone as well as the outside, and then from street graph and do the nutrient analysis, E. coli, bacteria, pH, physical parameter measurement. But we think that's not enough, because like the frequency that we are monitoring, like up to weekly monitoring, we still cannot capture the changes in this week. That's why 5 years ago, we start to look at the real-time water quality monitoring. Five years down the road, we have already installed the real-time monitoring station at 10 fish consorts. So these 10 fish consorts were equipped with the real-time monitoring of the sun taking up the dissolved oxygen, temperature, salinity, as well as chlorophyll A at every 10 minutes. And more importantly, we will receive an SMS if there is any exceedance in every single parameter that we have set. So back to the phytoplankton monitoring, we're actually doing maybe a bit better than GBB. They have 25 sampling stations, and we are monitoring 26. So we will do weekly sampling in our core station, bi-weekly sampling in the sub-core, and then the seasonal sampling on the rest. So basically for this phytoplankton monitoring, we want to look at the algal diversity.
Why is that level sun area not having any monitoring?
Well, actually we are doing at the Lofosan area as well. The frequency is monthly. Yeah, but it is actually not. Yeah, because well, this phytoplankton monitoring program mainly focusing on the fish zone. That's why, because the information that I'm providing is for fish only. But still, in the Lofosan area, the Bay Area, we have 3 monitoring sites, and it is for phytoplankton monitoring as well. But that's for oyster culture. That's why I haven't included that in this presentation. So what we are doing is that we will collect the water and then look at what kind of phytoplankton is there. If we found some toxic species or PSP producing species, then we will alert responding party and also do some other follow-ups. But still, we face the same problem with the water quality monitoring is that we don't have a continuous monitoring. That's why last year we explored some advanced technology for the real-time monitoring of the phytoplankton. So this machine, it can take up water at the field every single minute and then capture the phytoplankton inside. So here you see samples of the picture taken by the machine. And the more importantly, this machine can actually do the classification. So we may not need to rely on manual identification, but then we can move to the computer to doing the work to identify the species for us. And that can save a lot of manpower and also time saving. So with all these monitoring data or information, we are hoping that we can do a forecast because what we know for the past, we hope that that will help in the future. So for the red tide forecast, we are trying to develop a risk forecast for the fish zone. Like here, we will be estimating the likelihood of the red tide occurrence in the fish zone using a color tone. And at the same time, we will also use the modeling to track or to predict the development of the red tide. So we will know that when the red tide is coming, which part of the water or fish zone will be affected. Then we can have mitigation measure implement as soon as possible. So when talking about the severe typhoon, we don't want to see this occur in our fish zone anymore. So in the future, we are hoping to set up some advanced technology like the HDPE cages or even the semi-submersible truck steel vessels cages. So these cages are actually, they are high wind and wave resistance, and they are made with durable materials, and they have a long lifespan. So you can see from the video here, it was actually taken during a typhoon, the typhoon Hector, hitting the Zhuhai, one of the Zhuhai fish farms. So you see after the typhoon pass over, so all the fish cage, they were good. So we're hoping we are not seeing this in Hong Kong anymore in the near future. So when talk about the good aquaculture practice and fish health management, as mentioned, we are promoting the use of pellet feed, and we also do regular visit to the fish farm so as to have a better understanding of how the fish are doing out there. We will examine the fish so as to see if there is any disease sign, and then we'll advise some disease treatment before the problem getting to the worst. So what we are looking forward is that maybe you have heard from the policy address by our CE or the news here. The government is planning to set up new fish shelter zone in Hong Kong. So because we are not having enough fish, or because we need more, then we have to produce more. So we have already conducted a consultancy study and then identify a few spots that may be potential fish shelter zone. And in this fish shelter zone, we are trying to, we are hoping that we will use some of those wind-resistant deep sea cages and practicing some new advanced development used for the aquaculture. And talking about the Greater Bay Area Initiative, we are also exploring doing aquaculture in the Bay Area. So I do hope that, or I do believe that our fishery industry in Hong Kong can further develop into the Bay Area, and hoping that our production will sooner or later meet at least 10% or even more than what we need. But still, are we doing enough? Probably not. But can we do better? Probably yes. And then I will leave these questions to the audience for open discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joanne. We can take the quick question. Anyone have? Yes, quick one.
If a red tide is heading towards a fish farm, can the fish farmers actually do anything to save the fish?
Yeah, that depends, because actually for red tide, as I mentioned, we have toxic red tide or non-toxic red tide. For non-toxic red tide, it doesn't kill them directly, but that may decrease the dissolved oxygen. So normally we will advise a fish farmer at a later stage of the red tide collapsing, then we will ask them to put more aeration, pumping the water, and that will help to increase the oxygen. But then if for toxic species, what the farmer can do, firstly, they can move the fish stock to another place that is not affected by red tide. So the focusing is helpful because we will know that what the red tide will be going, and then we can advise them to move the fish stock to some other area that may not be affected by the red tide. Secondly, we can, if they cannot move their stock, they can use a bag to enclose their fish stock to temporarily separate the fish from the outside environment. So because for red tide that will go maybe 3 or 5 days later. So from that critical period, if they can separate them, that can save the fish.
So 90% of the fish in Hong Kong are imported. Right? Yeah. Robert.
Thank you. Very good presentation. If we're expanding aquaculture in Hong Kong, what temperature increase are we allowing for when we're deciding what to do? Because the IPCC 1.5 shows that sort of anything over a 1 degree average globally has severe impact on low altitude fishery. So that's question one. Question two, in terms, are we also looking at where the fish food comes from? Because Hong Kong has sort of had a bad reputation for just scouring the seas for trash fish in order to very inefficiently feed the aquaculture fish.
Thank you for the question. For the first question, actually we are doing the water quality monitoring, and in average, the DO at fish farm is on average around 6 milligram per liter. So if we are allowing that a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase, that means maybe it should now to 2%.
Yeah, but 1.5 is the average.
Yeah,
What are we going to get in Hong Kong?
Right. Yeah,
global average?
well, we actually we don't have that estimation yet, but still we are hoping that like with a 1 degree increase will be 2% decrease, 2 milligram percent of decrease.
That's right.
That will still hit 4, so that would be a minimal, the average, the optimal DO level for fish. But then if it goes down to 2, then that will be problematic. So that's the problem that we need to address in the near future. For the second question,
Food.
actually,
Yeah.
actually in 2012, we have a ban trawl and implement in Hong Kong. That means the trawling was banned since 2012.
So we grab it from outside Australia.
Well, actually for the trash fish consumption, I mean the usage of the trash fish in Hong Kong, we are actually seeing a decrease because the trash fish, the capture fish, are actually getting higher price. So the fish farmer is now willing to change to fish feed because comparatively, the pellet fish feed may be comparable to the trash fish price. So price-wise, then pellet is more competitive nowadays.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks. We actually have many of good talk, even from myself, particularly today, I hear quite a lot from the EPD, from the AFCD. Is quite, the educational to me. Now, I know we don't have bread, and of course you can go. We have a lunch, okay, and we want to save some time for, this kind of forum discussion, so that everyone has opportunity. So I won't spend too much time on my part. Now, I just want to say this is a climate change theme, okay, in this whole conference. So I will talk about something on the, from the big one to the small one in China Sea. Actually, this is what we have the sea surface temperature. This is 100 years later. You use this one minus this one. This is what is going to increase. Oh, look at this color bar. It's like 3 to 4 degrees. This is the under scenario. In the 100 years, we have an increase of the temperature of 4 degrees, air temperature, and CO2 the increase to 400 something. Okay. This is a scenario RCP the 8.2. Now, what you see here, this is from, of course, not from IPCC. This is from our results, regional results, and we believe this for China Sea, this is the best result. Okay. So far, it's much better than the one the IPCC. Because our resolution here is much higher than the 10 kilometers. Vertically, also higher resolution. Okay. Now you see the one of the thing is the northern part usually is getting, the warmer, more severe than the southern part generally. Okay. So this kind of the so-called heating, okay, warming the special variation is going to cause many things and also reflected in recent IPCC report. Well, if you see this is heat contents in 90 in upper part of the 100 meters, see this is a net change between now and then the 100 years later. See the heat contents increase most, again, that is in northern part and in the coastal region. Okay, this is what is going to happen in the net change in 100 years. And I emphasize again, I believe in any reasoning way that this supposedly is better than IPCC's normal result. This is a salinity going to change. Well, this one is very controversial because this is IPCC's, relies on the precipitation, okay, and river discharge. And you can see the freshening in the coastal region, and we know that the Yangtze River, Changjiang River discharge actually is increase. Okay, the reason of increase, besides the Three Gorge Dam, it is the increase. In our region, our river, actually yesterday talking about the sea level, Our river discharge in neighboring just a Pearl River is decreasing in last 16 years. It's decreasing. Okay. Before the 16 years ago, it was increasing. So increase is decreasing. We don't know why. Okay. Maybe with precipitation, maybe because of upstream the river channel change. Maybe a lot of the the hydrodynamics work conducted in the basin. But if you see the net change of this sea surface elevation, of course, this is just relatively, the value that you can see also the sea level change. Northern part because it's getting more heat, okay? So steric high expansion of the water, so you have more, the severe sea level increase in the northern part than in the southern part. Okay? So this is from our results. Well, not only we're doing the physics part, we're doing the biochemical part. I just show you the net change. Negative means decreasing, positive means increase. This is what shows to you that 100 years from now, okay, that the nutrient in the South China Sea is going to be decreasing, or negative here, okay, negative. What happens is then the biological productivity is all going to decrease. In another word, our fishing productivity, fishing industry may go down. Okay, you don't have a fish to eat. Try to scale, okay, because of the discounting decreasing here. Now you see that the net PCO2 ocean. This is CO2 between the pressure, partial pressure of CO2. In the northern part of the China, it's increased quite dramatically. Okay, but in the South China Sea, the also increase. Well, particularly in Western Pacific Ocean, it's not increased that much. If you see the CO2 change in different seas, different color, different seas, Eastern China Sea, South China Sea, Yellow Sea, okay, is roughly the same trends, but it's not in the same rate. Okay, so this is what we had. Of course, I said this one is better. Okay. Then IPCC is one. I think that because of the local dynamics, local higher resolution, and take care of the local thing. Well, what is the reason? Why? Why we have this change? We, as a scientist, and also as we say, the science, sustainability, got to be, the link together. You cannot just go over there and say we're going to die. Why? Why are we going to die? Okay, you want to know the reason. Okay, as a scientist, we need to provide that. Well, the reason is that you need to know what is the water movement here. Let me give you a very brief story of the water movement. Here, that we are sitting here, Hong Kong. This is a South China Sea, and there's a very strong current called corrosion. Okay, did I miss the corrosion? Here, corrosion here, passing through us. And once this current passing through us, if this current slows down, it will move more the Western Pacific water and deep water into South China Sea. Therefore, the fuel, the nutrient, heat towards the South China Sea. If this current speed up, okay, move fast, it won't go in here. So therefore, we will receive less nutrient from the deep water in the Western Pacific Ocean. Not only South China Sea, but also Eastern China Sea. This is the background there. So we need to deal with this very strong current here, corrosion, all the way from East Philippines to Japan. We all live affected by this so-called Western margin current or corrosion. Okay, or if you want it in Chinese directly, black tar. Okay, well, it's not black, but it's a Japanese name. Okay, so what happened? As you see here, this is just an illustration. The thing that in Western Pacific Ocean affect us. Of course, locally we also change. We also have our local effect, but our local effect should be combined with the effect from outside. And this is just to give you an example, okay, of how we are affected from the system next to us, Western Pacific Ocean. Okay. Now, what happened? 100 years later, okay, this current, the one I'm talking about, this current actually is speed up. See, speed up, paradox. The current speed up, the kinetic energy speed up. In another word, this current will pass through here without going into South China Sea. Okay? And this is like you going to pass in 10 left, but if you try too fast, you cannot 10. Okay, it's simple. We call it the inertia. So this current will speed up, and therefore the next thing will go into the South China Sea. That's what lead to the lower the oxygen. That's what lead to the less the nutrient coming into the South China Sea. That's what lead to the less productivity. One of the reasons, one of the key reasons for my belief. And so this is the thing that we need to take care of. That is kind of the reason in science. Whatever. Now, then the second question is that you say why does current need to be speed up? And the reason is because the heating in this region is not homogeneous. I show you that because of this current, the speed up, you see that this, because, why this current speed up? Because this current speed up. This current is called non-equatorial current. Okay, non-equatorial, and it's very important. The current is driven by the trade wind. You all know the trade wind? There's wind here. So this current, we can intensify under the warming situation. Therefore, our current closure here, the name, also so intensify. Okay? So the current going into South China Sea is decreasing. Therefore, less nutrient will go into the South China. So this is our satellite data also showing the corrosion. This is my model, the previous 100 years. But you see that this is satellite data. We estimate actual corrosion is strengthened, enhanced. This is one of the evidence. Okay, why the NEC increase, then lead to this corrosion increase, and then decrease this one? The reason is because I don't want to go into detail. Because heating here in the northern part is much stronger than the one in the southern part. Northern part is usually colder, receive more heat once the air temperature increases. Right? Colder people get the more heat because the contrast is between the air temperature and sea temperature. So therefore, this kind of inhomogeneous heating in the sea surface that lead to some kind of response. That's what we need to know for this kind of response of the climate. Okay. Well, you can see the decreasing of the nutrient influx into the South China Sea from now to 100 years later. Okay, this is through the Luzon Strait, the transport is decreasing. Well, and of course, the global warming, you can increase the stratification. It means you can then separate the upper part of the ocean with the lower part of the ocean. Okay, and that is also can enhance the kind of limited mixing of the water transport between the upper part and lower part. Therefore, the nutrient cannot be easily go up to the euphotic layer where the biological bloom can occur. Because you have higher stratification, that means you put a more barrier for them to come up. Okay, this is also warming effect. Well, I said that the chlorophyll, the productivity is decreasing in South China Sea. And then, this is my model prediction, and this is all the chlorophyll data we can get. It actually decreasing. Okay, so there's a sign that the evidence is showing that it is actually decreasing. Well, what is the model? When I said about this is a motion in the South China Sea. Okay, I show you that this is a movie that is showing you the South China Sea. Climate model, IPCC model. Everyone say that okay, they do a great job. They're doing it, but not in the regional ocean. Not in the regional ocean. I tell you the one is not. They don't do that. What? Here that I show you that this is either there's a three things rotating. Okay. The water is moving. This is supposed to be the correct way. Why is that correct? Because observation show you that this is a gray line. Observation show that in the upper layer, positive and then negative, positive, that means a rotation. Okay, now the details. Our model result is called China Sea multi-scale ocean modeling system. Is showing that in this purple line, we also have that. Okay, quite close. Maybe positive, negative, positive. All the other global models, I check it. This is just two very famous global model. HICOM is an office. They don't get it. They're all wrong. Sorry to say that. And I also checked the European one. I also checked, I'm sorry, Australian one. Okay? And I also checked the one that you know, the US, another one. For example, soda. They're all wrong. Okay. And I give you an example, and well, one is wrong, and then you guys start talking about climate change, right? You know, based on those results. And how can we, you know, and we start to spend the money for, say, the adaptation, because people die. So, but this, I think that we need to be very careful. Now, I give you an example. This is a hit in the motor. You got to check it. Nobody actually really check it. They hit the button. Someone said that this kind of right from a garbage in, garbage out. It is easy. You can download it, and everyone can do that. I'm doing that. So what you see here is our motor. You add this much heat. You're going up. Got to be, these two got to be close each other, at least, right? How much you heat them? How much you pass out? Something or balance. Everyone can common sense. This is our motor. This is in terms of the heat. Well, you see that this kind of motor. This much they eat. They get back to this one. How can it be? And this is another one. You add this much, you then input this much inside your motor. The motor itself, in the first principle, is not right. And you're talking about warming, you start talking about many other things. I don't think that this would, you know, that it is quite right. This is our motoring system. All right, so I give you two example, the local example, and also bring you the caution about say the IPCC, or how do we, you know, they're doing a great job. It's one of the very good piece of the results. But in the regional ocean, okay, can we just simply extrapolate it here? I don't think that we should do that. Okay, at least we got to do it with a great caution. Well, this is again our modeling system. I'll tell you that 100 years later, Hong Kong is temperature now, 50 years later, and this is 100 years later. And this is the PCO2, what's going to change. Okay. All these results are not published. And I did it several years ago. Okay, I don't have time to elaborate the details. We are writing it up. And I like to have local cooperation. Okay, and this is what is going to change in Hong Kong water PCO2 in next 100 years. Again, I said that this is, anyone can argue with me, but I think that this, I usually call it the second best model. Okay? And everyone will ask me, who is the best one? I say, I don't know. Okay?
Yes, this is all on 8.5, right?
That's right. This is okay. Okay. Now, Professor Dai this morning talked about this issue in Hong Kong. And also Tony and Joanne also talked about this. This is our field measurement. We went out so many years. And Professor Dai and our group, we went out here to do the survey. Of course, it's outside Hong Kong waters, okay, at the time, to do the Hong Kong water too. Now, you see that this is oxygen, less than the, it's hypoxia, that is that's all. The organism, the biological species cannot survive. This is what we see, that less than 2 milligrams per liter. And then we start to look at the time series. EPD did a great job. EPD is one of the best agencies in the world. They conduct this kind of persistent measurement. Okay, well, I'm not trying to say, but you see the overall, you don't see this kind of thing. Well, what we get in the data actually is you see that the nitrogen, okay, in the western part of Hong Kong, in last 1990 all the way to here, 20 years, is increasing. Summer oxygen is decreasing. From here all the way to close to 2, that's all. Also in the northwestern region, is decreasing. Summer, I'm talking about, is seasonal hypoxia. Is decreasing oxygen. Nitrogen also increasing. Okay, summertime. Well, actually, Tony just showed that actually summer, with the dissolved inorganic nitrogen actually is also slightly increased. Okay. Well, in the mirror spec, you also see that similarly. So this is quite alarming labels. If it keeps decreasing, okay, our fish culture zone, our water pollution, our biological organism species, would then experience this kind of the elimination in the summertime. I'd like to just show you that this is in Victoria. In the summertime, before 2001, before HES implemented harbor area treatment scheme, they do a great job. So now we don't see those kind of the pollutants and E. coli in the Victoria Harbor, so we can swim. But you see that this is oxygen decreasing, not that much before the harbor area treatment scheme. But then after harbor area treatment in 2001, the phase 1, well, oxygen improved quite a lot, 10%. But since 2001 to now, it decreased. Almost go back to the original in terms of bottom oxygen. We need to doing something? Do we need to do something for that? Okay, this is is our Victoria Harbor. It's Hong Kong's waters, and if hypoxia did occur, if this trend keep going, we start to have the kind of bad smell in the Victoria Harbor. Okay, this is what we don't want. So I propose the government to conduct this research, and so we bring the expertise with the stakeholder, we all together. Now, if you want to see the more details, you can call ocean.sust.hk easier. Okay, the short name is called Ocean HK project. And we bring the academics, stakeholder, or we go together. Let's see what happened in Hong Kong. How can we do it better? We all know that the phosphate is decreasing in the sewage discharge. And Professor Dai this morning also showing that the sewage, actually ammonium, the discharging from our sewage plant also affected our waters in southwestern part. Okay. Now, earlier time, why the phosphate is decreasing? Because people think that the phosphate is the key element that affected the eutrophication in Hong Kong water. So, phosphate relatively economically can be removed in the sewage plant. But if that work, we shouldn't have this kind of serious problem. In another word, we should look beyond just this kind of the phosphate. Anyway, hope you can keep tuning on this kind of updating. We have been doing the hard working. We not only doing the Hong Kong waters, because Hong Kong water also link with the mainland waters. And we have Professor Dai and also another professor from mainland, such that we can work together. Otherwise, Hong Kong, that we went to mainland, we do the sampling, we have a difficulty. Okay, so we work together, and then solve this problem. Yesterday, many people talking about this kind of the typhoon. This is typhoon this year. Okay, just last month. And before that, I did the prediction of the water table, and this is in Hong Kong. This is in Macau. So this is our prediction. And last year, I also did it for the Macau. I didn't do the forecast, but I did a hindcast. That means after the event, I do the calculation with our. And so this is what happened. Okay, you can see that the sea level increase. I just entertained the year. This sea level, when the typhoon is coming, the sea level is increased. Okay, the sea level is increased. Typhoon is here. Okay, by this time, last year, August 27th, at 9 o'clock in the morning, typhoon moved here. Okay, and when you see the sea level increase in Macau side, and about 11 o'clock, well, sea level increase dramatically. And this is a time that when the people get killed, 12 o'clock. Okay. I showed this one in Macau. Professor Dai and I, we went to also Macau. One is the eutrophication, another one is this kind of storm surge. And of course, in Hong Kong, the HKO is also doing that. Okay. Well, this is one of the entertainment. Okay, I don't want to. Recently, I actually participated. This is on Chinese. I'm sorry, but I explained to you that the chapter, right? Chapter say called the China Sea physics part. Professor Dai is responsible for the biochemical part. So at the end, I share with you those evidence. The evidence is from 90 to now that we have acceleration of the warming and increase of sea level, particularly in northern part of China. Eastern China Sea is the water temperature increase the most faster in Eastern China Sea. Why? Okay, this is also because the control mechanism is complex. There's many kinds of the hypothesis. Okay, South China Sea, the increase is almost same as the northern part, but amplitude is small, as I just saw in my model result. My model result cannot say in the report. This is evidence, observation basically, because the report based on the evidence. Control mechanism, what control it? Well, one of the Yangtze River's discharge waters go into the South China Sea. Second one, monsoon the change, monsoon wind change. Okay, southwesterly monsoon actually decrease, and the northeasterly monsoon increase. This one is quite obvious. This one is quite a big controversy. It read a different evidence, different result. Okay? You get a different result. Well, this one I just showed you the same result. Closure actually is increase. Okay, the current passing through that. This is the result. Uncertainty, huge uncertainty. They don't have physics reasoning. Some of the results you get that you said that I'm getting, the stronger, I'm getting healthy. You can have a reason. Okay, maybe there's a factor signal. So there's not this kind of the background and mechanism is not clear. We don't have an observation time series, including Hong Kong. Okay, let me say in the ocean, not in the land. Everyone concerned about the climate change. No one is putting the time series there. We put it the first buoy down in Hong Kong, monitoring, starting from this year. No one is doing that. Okay. The American model, this is a huge game. Okay. Now, the American models we do that with physics, science base. You don't download the code in the web, hit the button, submit it to government, and say this is the result without the science observation verification. Okay, so this I write this in the report and I share with you. Summary, okay. I don't need to go to summary, okay. So that's my quick introduction for you. Now I know that we have lunch in 1 hour, okay, and lunch is in the GF restaurant like yesterday, okay. Before lunch, we have a job to do. We can discuss. Okay. I think that yesterday's style is pretty good. Can we move the chair on the first row facing the side? Okay, and such that the people can face each other rather than everyone facing on this side. Okay. So we can do that, and then do this way. Okay, move the chair and maybe we can then sit around, start the discussion. the first thing for people to, express your view is that under current situation, under the, the changing climate framework, what do you think the Hong Kong marine water, marine environment, what should we do about it? And before this question, okay, this is another change. Are we satisfied with what we have now? Well, Dr. Chu actually introduced that this morning. But are we satisfied? And as part of this community, are we happy with this? You're not quite happy, right?
I'm not happy at all. We have environmental protection laws that are not being applied by the government. The government is actively breaking the law to promote and facilitate the small house policy in the new territories. So houses with polluting septic tanks can be put in really highly sensitive areas. And we have laws to prevent this, but they're not being applied. And for me that is shocking. I talk to a lot of university students, secondary students, primary school kids, and the smaller children are shocked because they think the government is there to protect us and after us. And I have to point out, well, no. And certainly in the planning world, planning around the world is full of corruption. And we have corruption here. And that shocks school children. And we were told we should improve planning to prevent pollution. Well, yes, we should be. But it's not happening. I'll give you an example. There's a research from the University of Hong Kong, came to Hong who was examining the water as entering the new hot waters. He found a female snail with a penis. Now this means that's going to be a result of an endocrine disrupting compound, an EDC, which is coming from probably the septic tanks that we are. But our water percolates straight into the sea because we're not applying the setback distance of 100 metres. We're allowing septic tanks 30 metres from a site as well as special scientific interest. We have the wastewater from the houses go straight into the sea. So if you are having a washing machine going, and a dishwasher, and a shower, how many people are using biodegradable detergents? They're not. It's all going into the sea and it's affecting the corals. That's why it's a site of special scientific interest. And we feel very let down that the environmental laws aren't being used. We have a technical memorandum. It's widely out of date. It's supposed to be an interim document. It's never been updated. And when it was written, we didn't have human rights. So for me, it's a big cause of concern.
Of course, Hong Kong, that's what the question is that what, anything more we can do. But from my view, actually, Hong Kong doing well, I realize that what you say is also the fact. But here, Hong Kong is the only city in the world. I don't know if that's the only, but you can count it using the seawater, fresh water. Okay.
You might be in the cities, out of the countryside we don't. We use fresh water for everything. The people out in the new territories aren't given what we get in the cities. We don't have sewage treatment works, we don't get seawater for flushing, we're using fresh water.
Oh, in the new territory?
Yes. And many of the houses don't even have septic tanks, the sewage is going
my
straight
home,
into the
I live
sea.
here, I use the seawater. Still uses in new territory. Not everywhere.
And how the government has the data, okay? Only most of the water is treated before discharge.
That's right.
In a lot of scattered areas in the islands, in the new territories, around 10% of those waters are not treated. And we are not recycling the seawater for flushing in those areas.
See,
So
when I
you see, the government actually has not improved such situation for more than 10 years. Okay, we have government representatives to tell us, okay, what the governments are doing now. But I don't think they have the very good strategies to handle climate change or improve over time with time. Okay, for example, the 10% sewage water, where they're not treated or discharged, why are not moving to the best?
we are still keeping a certain standard. And even for legislation, that is a very good comment. Those are very old, outdated legislations. We have not updated on this aspect at all. But the problem actually is we are facing climate change. Hong Kong is a city. We generate a very good GDP. But we are not doing enough to combat the climate change. And we are not setting a good example for mainland China to improve. I think that is very serious. And Hong Kong government should take the lead because there are a lot of, even for citizens, we can do something better to reduce the effects of climate change. But the government has not taken up the role of educating the community. You have good, very good, excellent presentation, but actually the government service, do they respond to what will be the strategies to handle seawater rise? Okay, we are talking about reclamation in the Lantau Island. What will happen then? How could we handle all such? And what is the strategies? And that is, I think, something we care about environment. We care about present generation and the future. But what should be done, even for laymen, for professionals, for the academics, everyone want to get something, okay, as a vision, by government, how to lead us to do something. And that's my comment.
That's why government people is afraid to be here. Yes, Robert.
Thank you. Professor Gan, you asked me to take notes. I'm going to do a really bad job.
I didn't ask you that, actually, that Christine asked you.
Okay. So, thanks to Nicola, I have a very clear understanding of the Hoi Ha problem. I am very confused about the big picture in terms of hyperoxia, etc. And maybe, Professor Dai, could you just try and summarize for a layman? I'm not a scientist. Could you summarize for a layman just what are the main threats and what are the actions that perhaps we should take for it? Because we're going to try and do a summary on all of this. And it needs to be a summary which laymen can understand.
This is what is a good expertise of Professor Dai.
Yeah. I think the hypoxia or low oxygen or oxygen depletion has been emerging. This is a new issue. I'm not talking about the eastern part of the Hong Kong water. I'm talking primarily the western part, Pearl River, lower estuary between Hong Kong and Macau, because I'm not knowledgeable enough for the east part of the Hong Kong territory, so I have to be clear. So the western part of the Hong Kong area, I think it's the hypoxia oxygen depletion has been emerging, and the primary reason was the eutrophication from the land, and also sewage, waste, organic pollutants. Both the eutrophication, nutrient discharge, and the organic pollutants contribute to formation of this hypoxia. And among the sewage and the nutrient contribution, I think the Hong Kong, localized Hong Kong contribution is also there, but we don't know yet how much of the percentage contribution from the localized Hong Kong. So to put it in a very simplified way, both Hong Kong and the Pearl River from Canton, from the land, contribute to the degradation of the environment between the western part of the Hong Kong. So that's the one reason. I just want to echo a little bit this, I think the Hong Kong is having a great opportunity to be leading in Asia countries in responding adaptation, resilience to climate change, as well as in responding to the pressure from the human being by the local Hong Kong itself and from the Great Bay Area in mainland China. And I think as I was briefly mentioning in the action framework Hong Kong 2030 plus, I think the marine ecosystem, marine environment, and its linkage with the Hong Kong society and the future economy development is missing. So this is the perfect timing for Hong Kong government or all sector of the Hong Kong region to proceed and take actions in both of the integrated planning and also actual action to be taken. I think it's a very strong message, at least from my personal perspective.
Could I ask a supplementary question, and that is, this is not something that can be done by Hong Kong alone. It has to be done for a sort of Great Bay Area or Pearl River Delta arrangement. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
And how to do that?
I think it's as a global, climate change is a global issue, but it requires, climate issues is a global phenomenon, but with regional effects. And it takes every region of the world to work with or tackle the climate issue, both in terms of adaptation, remediation, or resilience. And the zoom into the Hong Kong area is the same, because as I spoke during my talk, is connected. Water is connected, economy is connected, social human being is connected, so you have to work with together. But each city has its own responsibility. I think it's also very logical and clear.
May I follow up on that?
Sure.
Because I noticed that you emphasized the point about the blue economy, and you mentioned about decoupling. And just now you're saying that, the social economic part is going to get environment. So could you sort of enlighten us on how you decouple and how you could have the innovation, as you say?
It's a complicated question, and it's an ongoing effort worldwide. Actually, we try to decouple the environmental degradation with the development of society, of the economy. I think one of the key is the technology innovation, because we are transforming into this fourth industrial revolution. New technology can do what people could not have imagined. And secondly, I think it's cooperation, coordination, and the integration. That's the concept of the ecosystem-based management. We are not trying to stop the development. I think you have to develop, and many parts of the world has to develop for the well-being. And at the same time, there is way, in much coordinated way, as the separated development. So we could reach, because some other parts of the world can be, Norway, I was in Norway, because this is one of the good example. They doing the fishery very well. Codfish is the most productive area, and at the same time they're doing the oil industry, petroleum. So it's a matter of coordination and the governance, and also the science-based the research and management. It's a complex topic. It takes hours but this is the principal concept, the coordination and the new technology.
Any other issue that anyone want to raise? In terms of particularly the question for the current situation in Hong Kong, the marine water, and that directly related to actually the fish culture zone. Okay, it's so important that we can. Actually, one question for Joanne. Red tide. Is that the most concerned problem? And because that is the one that devastating the kill the fish culture zone. Is this the most concern? Or, of course, red tide eutrophication, but eutrophication may not be in the zone in western part of waters. Okay, hypoxia could be, right? But then its red tide seems like El Nino red tides. Necessary condition and not sufficient. Okay, but then is that I know HAV probably is the most concerned about.
Well, I would say, based on the data that we have in the past year, we see a reduction in the number of red tide in Hong Kong, as mentioned by Dr. Chiu earlier. But then we do see that each red tide lasts longer than before. Like in the past, maybe 3 to 5 days, but then now may last for a week or more than 2 weeks. So it's a bit alarming because if the cell keeps there and then growing, and then when they decompose, then the DO level will drop. Well, actually, red tide is a very serious issue, and we know very little about that. It's not like simply measure the DO or acidity or salinity, because we don't really know that what caused the red tide and which phytoplankton will brew every time. So at the moment, what the government can do is monitoring. When we do monitoring, we will know if there is anything coming. If anything coming, is that toxic or it's okay, we can manage. If with better understanding of what will be coming, then we can plan for the mitigation measures. So basically, now is the direction that we are going at. We are focusing on is the monitoring part, but then as I mentioned, we hopefully that we can do the forecast part. Then we will know more and then prepare for the worst.
1998, Hong Kong is one of the devastated red tides. Many of you probably remember. Billions of the fish culture zone and $1 million worth get destroyed. Many people start to study that. Government actually start to sponsor with its research. I can say this so far, the mechanism still not understood.
No, I have to point out it's a world-class problem.
That's right.
Yeah, it's been researched for many years, 30 years in the world. It's still hard to understand why these specific toxic species get grown. And I got a question for this, Dr. Chu is not here. What's the...
Oh, you can wait a little bit.
Probably for the agency, common question is, because I was seeing all this data and the threshold objective for probably AFCD also have similar things. What's the mechanism behind to determine all these objectives? For example, the 6 cage area determined it's suitable for agriculture. So these policy making.
Well, maybe I talk a little bit more about the history first. At the moment, we have 26 fish shelter zones, but when they became fish shelter zone, that's not came from a very fully planned manner. So because before 1986, the Marine Fish Culture Ordinance implemented, the fish culture in Hong Kong, they are just practicing in a regular manner. So people just keeping their fish cage everywhere in Hong Kong area. But then after the ordinance are implemented, then we have designated some area for fish culture, and then they just put the area near what they are practicing the fish culture in a specific area, very close to it, and then they do the culture there. But talking about in the future, we are focusing on sustainability. So we have to find a place that can allow fish farming. The place that we are having now are very coastal area, maybe just 4 to 5 meters depth, very bad flushing, and that's not good for aquaculture. So we are finding the place that with better water quality in terms of the current, in terms of DO, flushing, or pollution issues. So that's why we are moving the fish farm from coastal to the open sea. So as you can see from the consultant study, basically in a consultant study they consider different constraints like physical constraint, environmental constraint, and then identify the area that will be most helpful or sustainable for the development of fisheries. So we choose those areas, you can see with higher water depth, better current flow, and hopefully we will have a larger area for fish farming that will dilute the impact of the mariculture. With that scientific background, planning, management, then we hopefully will be seeing that the fishery can grow in a sustainable manner.
So it seems that the sites you have identified mainly in the eastern border.
Yes, because we have to counter-check about the past water quality in the area, and we really admit that the eastern part of the Hong Kong water is better than the western part. So when we calculate the amount of fish that can be cultured in that area, then that would be higher. So if we have a less area that can sustain more fish culture, then it would be a better choice for us, rather than having a very large piece of area in the western part of Hong Kong water, but just producing very less because there is environmental water quality constraints.
Yeah, and I think it appears to be sensible because the eastern water is less affected by pollutants from Pearl River, Delta, and estuary. And one thing I just wish to ask is, when we think about this new fish culture zone, would you relate this to, for example, I saw one from near Cut-Off, and some maybe here in Wingzhou. So would you also relate, when these fish culture zones are established, how this can create a synergy with the local economy to help a little bit, the local economy of these isolated islands, or to improve their quality of living, supply them with electricity, fresh water, and enhance their septic tank installation to avoid pollutants washing into the fish culture zone.
Well, actually, for the infrastructure on land or the pollution derived from the land area or the nearby area actually fall in the purview of the Environmental Protection Department. But what we can do is that we are trying to minimize in another remark, we are trying to minimize the impact of mariculture on the water quality. So in that angle, as we always do, we encourage the use of the pellet feed, and we control the amount of fish that could be captured in the area. That would be our plan for the new fish culture zone. And also, we are thinking of supplying, have better infrastructure support to the new fish culture zone, like have electricity or fresh water supply, common area for water quality monitoring, or feed storage. Those are the problems that the fish farmer they are facing with nowadays, because they are lack of electricity, lack of fresh water. They don't have enough space for pellet feed, so they all have these kind of complaint. So in the future, we are hoping that the new fish culture zone will entertain this problem. And then, so at the same time, we are helping the fishermen, we are helping the community, we are providing good quality of fish to the local community.
And I totally agree with you, and that's why I think we should adopt, or the government should adopt a more comprehensive approach. And I know that the fish culture zone is a matter of AFCD, and then controlling the discharge from these islands is a matter of PVD, and then the power supply to enhance the quality of living of these rural communities is a matter of HAE. So, well, the Hong Kong government is very efficient, but I would say this may be a case that we should adopt to break all these silos and come up with a more comprehensive plan, for the area.
Yeah, I agree with that. Actually, for the electricity supply, those infrastructure support, we do have affiliation with other departments. Hopefully that we can help the new fishers on to set up those infrastructure. Then talking about the pollution issue, and I'm really sure that the EPD can take care of that. So we are not that worried about the issue. And actually, the new fishers zone will be further away from the industrial or the urban area. So we hopefully that the impact will be reduced.
Yeah, this interagency is extremely important for this future management and sustainability. I saw this response to the extreme weather flooding. Already Hong Kong has some of the mechanism in responding. The security office, the top officer, I believe, for oversight and responding system. I think that the routine sustainability issue, Hong Kong government needs some of the interagency dialogue communication. One of probably the tough question for you, because the monitoring, for example, EPD is doing the monitoring, AFCD is doing. This is actually there is some of the room to improve. We could do it together, actually with better quality, better strategy, and better coordination.
But the focus may not be the same. So
yeah.
I know in the government in Hong Kong may not be very easy.
It's
Yeah,
difficult.
as Dr. Chiu mentioned, they have different water quality standards depending on
That's right.
the use of the water.
That's right.
So for us, for fish tourism, we are doing for aquaculture. So I can point out one of the example is that for DO, actually for fish tourism, we have a DOWQO of 5 instead of 4. So we are having different standard because we are looking after the fish culture. We have a higher DO.
Still coordination is so important.
Yeah.
But it's in the government the coordination. And that's why I think one thing we perhaps we may advocate is that, actually this is a very good example. Perhaps we should have a more holistic,
That's right.
an approach for this area. Couple, then there are several, new fish culture farm established there. So we should take a comprehensive approach. It's not just there are fish culture farms and then I put there, and then fishermen need electricity and supply them with electricity. I think we perhaps the approach and mindset should be enhanced.
Okay.
Sorry, Joanne, you mentioned a consultant study that you were working on. Is that a public document? Is that a document I can find on a website somewhere?
Not at the moment, but we will soon publish it. Yeah, I'll let you know.
And to what extent does it consider future climate change, changes in temperature and other factors that we've been discussing today?
I can say no, because actually the consultancy startup maybe 4 years ago, and then our main aim is just for looking for better area for fish culture.
Or avoid the bad area. Right. That's something. Avoid that area.
But we do take care of we do have think of like introducing more advanced technology that is for fighting against severe storm. So we are having the change of the fish cage design. So that those areas have been covered by the consultant study. And they also look at the species that can be cultured or that will be good for Hong Kong. So in that area, they do pick up some species that would be more environmental durable. So we are not setting a target to like the fish zone has to allow 2 milligram per liter DO level drop. We don't have that, but we have some element inside.
It sounds as though this consulting study is a very useful step in the whole process, but it's not the end of the journey.
Sure.
And one question is, do you have any plan to have sort of workshops to sort of discuss the
what the consultant's report is at some point in the future, so one can both understand what's being done and also have suggestions for further study?
Actually, for the consultant study, we do have consultation section, but that didn't involve everybody in the discussion. We mainly contact the Fishermen's Society, a few academic researchers, mainly on aquaculture. So maybe at the later stage when we decide which culture zone to be go up, then we may have another kind of discussion or dialogue going on, seeing which one will be the best for the
For
community.
example, Hong Kong Island here, and I think on the Lee Hong Kong Island here, there's a new nature, the nutrient coming up that location.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the current. I know the Hong Kong, both EPD and FCD rarely measure the current, right? And I don't know how the currents is based on. This is also the curiosity for me.
Yeah, I mean that. Actually, current is a big, it's an important parameter for looking at the fish culture. But apparently, we don't have a routine or regular monitoring of the current. But the current data, we relied on the input from Marine Department and also CEDD. When they do some work project on ocean, they will kind of measure the current, and then also Marine Department and HAO. So we do rely on those piece by piece data. But in the near future, I do think that we have to include.
Yeah, you need to include, say, the flushing time. You want to have those kind of the disposal of the food layer, so such that is, flushing time is fast. The place where you have natural nutrient from deep water uploaded there, that will make a fish stronger, healthy, and even tasteful. Okay, I guess several things from the, as Robert just said, from different angles, maybe can help.
Well, in our previous study back to 2012, we did have a study on the flushing rate of each coastal zone. So that kind of data relied on the current input from other sources, but we still can sort of estimate the flushing rate in each coastal zone and then determine, because that will affect how the pollutants can be brought away.
That's right.
So with that, then we can calculate how much fish we can put there. So that's the study, the Waterman study came out. So we are relying on that specific scientific information to judge or to determine how many license or how many fish farm we can put in our
I just want to mention the two things. The first thing is, current. There's two kind of current. One is tide. Okay, tide is every 24 hours in and out. That one doesn't really help in terms of the nutrient. There's another one is called the wind. So upwarding. And I know the currently Hong Kong, the most of the numerical model doesn't really include that kind of the low frequency besides time. So the upwarding part, is very, very important for the fish culture zone because it brings the nature of the nutrient from the deep water towards the, say, the eastern part of Hong Kong. Forget about western part. Western part we cannot have any, fish culture zone. And the fish there, I don't know, is it edible? No, I don't know. But then
no worries, okay.
It's okay, okay. Eastern part is, very important, the fish culture. And every time you went to Mirrors Bay, you see lots of fish culture zone, okay. But, we went there and I can identify the place where you should have most of the nature nutrient. It's just on the lee of the Hong Kong Islands. That's naturally
Yeah, I'm surprised of that too.
Yeah.
What's the reason behind?
Because of the hydrodynamics, always on the lee of the islands, there's nature, the upwarding, that bring the nature nutrient coming up from the ocean. So if you want to do the fishing, you should go over there somewhere. And another, this example is in the Guangdong. Is what is that? The sun. What is that called? There's a fish culture zone in China. No fish culture, fishing ground in China.
Oh,
and it's exactly located in the lee of the coastline. Everything is upward. And also another one is in Zhoushan. Everyone knows Zhoushan, right? Why Zhoushan is a fishing culture, fishing ground tradition. Its reason is a nature nutrient coming up from the bottom of the ocean, and then the supply the nutrient for phytoplankton, zooplankton, and that is also the Hong Kong is one of these locations. Very nice, just sit there. And our field data I can show you that you can see the high nutrient, cold temperature. Okay, beautiful location. And I don't know.
Maybe we can have shellfish cover there.
Yeah, that is a good place. Maybe the higher price, the fish can come in from there. That's what the time.
May I follow up on that? Because just now, I agree with Robert that maybe the consultant could benefit from some feedbacks of what they could do. And just now, mention was made of electricity. I think Mr. Dai mentioned about renewable energy in his PowerPoint, and we mentioned about current. So can't we actually ask for some innovation, interdisciplinary research on whether we could provide the electricity to the fish farmers there, all right? I mean, you need very little actually. So whether you can use current or you just use solar panel, that will solve the problem. Would that be considered by the consultant?
Well, I would say for a consultancy study, that one has been completed. So if we are hoping that to study more or have more discussion on that, or we may have another one coming up and then just looking at a particular issue related with the fish tourism, and we are happy to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, we showed that actually the earlier time someone asked me, they say, hey, where's the best location? And I showed where's the highest nature nutrients that can be upward to euphoric layer, because from our measurement and our numerical model based on those measurements, so you can extrapolate. You cannot measure every point. So this is another. I think Professor Dai has a question for you. Why you were away? We're waiting for you. I know you. All right, just kidding. Okay.
Yes.
What type of fishermen are interested in these farms?
Sorry?
What type of fishermen are interested in these farms? Young, old, who wants to join us for these farms? Who wants to do the farm?
Yeah.
Who does? Which type of fishermen? Are the local cycling fishermen, or what?
Well, actually, we want that the fishery industry, the community can expand in Hong Kong. So currently we have we have around 1,000 marine fish culture license. That means the industry is around 2,000 person only. But we are hoping that the new fish tourism will bring in new blood, and then they will be practicing fish farming. We are also providing the opportunity for the capture fishermen to switch to aquaculture because of the drawback. Many of them they cannot. They have to switch to a more sustainable operation of the fishery, and with their experience and a better alternative would be fish farming. So we are having more space and then allowing new blood and also the fishermen going.
When I retire, I will do this.
And the income can be enormous.
I've got a question. We're talking about fish farming, but we have marine parks which could be nurseries for fish, but they're not because they allow fishing in them. Why have you still not banned fishing? It was in the policy address 10 years ago. The chief executive promised he would stop fishing in the marine parks. It never happened. Because what happens in other countries, say New Zealand, the fishermen are asking for more marine parks because they realise that these are spawning grounds and that the fish can grow up to maturity. And what the fishermen are doing, they fish what they call fishing the line. So where the fish actually leave the marine park along the boundary, the fishermen are allowed to fish there, but they're not allowed in the marine parks. Why aren't we also promoting developing the fishing industry in Hong Kong by making sure we have marine parks where fish can grow, not be fished out? I really don't understand why that's not happening.
Probably I cannot give a clear answer for that. But in the current practice, we
we do allow some fishermen doing fishing in the marine parks, but with a control on that. So we issue the permit, and I believe that this is because there's still a need for land to do a living, and at the same time we are concerned about the issue of the environment or the resources. So we have a cap on the catch. So we are hoping that this measure or interim measure, I'm not sure in the near future maybe we have to ban that, or I don't really know. The point is that we hope that we can strike a balance between the catch and also the conservation in marine park.
Sorry, that's a cop-out. The marine parks should be no takings, and that is an absolute given. You do not allow fishing. We have 450 fishing permits in Hoy Park. They were supposed to stop giving them out. They're now allowing these fishing permits to be passed on to other people. So we're not seeing a reduction in the number of permits. We have people out there, they rape and pillage the marine park. We've lost all the rangelands. It's not being done in a sustainable manner. There isn't a cap. The indigenous people take what the heck they like. And when we say indigenous people, we're not talking about poor, impoverished peasants. We're talking about ordinary people like you and me who are living there. Like we have professionals who are retired. They're not poor people. They're not fishing because they're poor and they need to. They're fishing as a hobby because it's fun. And they're retired. But really, we need no takes. And that would improve the fishermen's livelihood.
Well, I have one curiosity thing. Upper Noni, do we have Upper Noni, the farm in Hong Kong?
No.
Okay, but
we do have 2 to 3 farmers. They are trying to culture that.
Okay, there's one information is that there's one Dongshan, okay, where the Professor Dai has a marine lab with Taiku, the Suan. Anyway, there's that place is upwarding. They was told that 60% of all abalone was produced in Dongshan, where they were upwarding. The reason is because cold water, high nutrient. So in Hong Kong, in the area where I said maybe can have abalone. It's the cold waters and the upwarding. Well, just for someone who want to get rich. Free information.
Well, we try to do an IMTA in Hong Kong, but we still lack some scientific input, like how much of that or what combination of that can be done in Hong Kong. But putting shellfish, seaweed, together with fish farming, I believe that is a more sustainable way to utilize the resources.
So, Professor, may I change a little bit the subject to
Sure.
sewage? I think we can capture 93% of our sewages. This is a remarkable,
That's right.
achievement. And I would like to know first of how this remaining 7% of uncaught sewage, their impact on our water quality and how the government will do about it. And the second is for our 93%, captured sewage. Any plan to further upgrade the sewage treatment before it is discharged back to the sea?
Tony, I think it is for you. No,
I'm here.
Tony, you can sit here so everyone can see you.
Yeah.
Please. Okay.
Everyone want to see me?
Very good.
That's good news, right?
Okay, see you next to you. Okay. Nowadays, I think we collect about 93% of all our sewage. What I mean by 93% is that 93% of the population, the sewage are converted by public sewer to public sewage treatment plant. That means this portion of sewage are tackled by our drainage service department. So, how about the remaining 7%? or more exactly, what are these 7%? For sewage treatment or for public sewage treatment to be efficient, it mainly rely on the population, the density of the population. If we have one sewage village house, 10 villagers living in a remote area, it's costly and it's not efficient to have that part of the population connect to our systems. I think everyone can understand that because we have a long distance, we need to consider about the flow. If the flow is so little, we probably dry up in the middle. Also, we need to take tunnels. We need to build all these infrastructures. We may also need to have intermediate pumping stations to cater for the hydraulic flow. This all will be very costly. Also, what are we talking about are these villages living among, for example, the country parks. We have, due to historical reasons, even in our gazetted country parks, there are still local villages. It's not easy to build a tunnel or sewage system to collect all this. But having said that, I'm not suggesting that these are not catered for. For this kind of small village house, if their development exceeds a certain amount of a house, they need to group together in a community. They need to have their own private sewage treatment plant. They need to tackle that before they can be discharged. So what I'm talking about at 93% is 90% treated by our public sewage system. For the remaining 7%, they still need to treat them. Another question is what are we doing with this? Actually, every year the Hong Kong government are extending our sewage network. We are laying more and more trunk sewers. Those living in the new territories, in the villages, in the past they all relied on private septic tanks. But nowadays, if we are successful in building trunk sewer, they need to connect their sewage to the public sewer also. So what I'm saying is gradually we are extending our network to these remote villages. This is a long, costly, is a very difficult task, but we are doing that. Every year we are extending our network to these remote villages. We are trying to connect them. Actually, we aim to connect all eventually, but this is a mission that still needs to be accomplished. I think for some years before we can say so. Economically, you can say that handling population like Sati, densely new town, collecting their sewage per head is very efficient. But collecting the sewage from a remote village per head is very expensive.
And maybe this can relate it to versus to the question, say that correcting the net 7% or to the enhanced treatment.
Yes,
treatment.
Okay, now we have a context on that sort of population treated by government treatment plant. I hope you can understand that for the remaining 7%, they are still need to treat them. Talking about the way forward for our sewage treatment facilities. Actually, we have the FIM project, which is going to provide answer on the relationship between eutrophication, nutrient hypoxia, contribution from Hong Kong, contribution from the Pearl River regions, all together grouped into a simple question. Do we need to further enhance our treatment system? But before we have that answer, actually we are also doing different enhancement work, different kind of scale. For example, in Hong Kong, actually we have a treatment plant we can treat water into a tertiary scale. We have a treatment plant in, I think it's Long Ping, Lantau, which treat the sewage there into a scale that to a drinkable standard. Also, we have a new development for the sewage treatment plant in North District, I think, the Sepu Hui. We actually have that promoting the use of grey water. That means treated water. In certain extent, that have been used in some limited purpose, for example, for the golf club there. But we are also seeing that whether we can have a dual system, a system for potable water, a system for recyclable water, that can, for example, help the water budget. Because we are talking about climate, actually water is also a very precious resource. And we are also upgrading most of our treatment plants, possibly to secondary treatment level with enhanced nitrogen removal. These are steps we are going to do, but I can understand that we are also very interested to know the future of our heads, the stone cutter. But I think this is an answer to be addressed after we have all the details studied about the eutrophication and nutrients and things like that.
I'm sorry.
Point
of clarification. You were saying there is the study that's going to look at all these things, eutrophication, nutrients, hypoxia. What is the name of this study and what is the time scale?
I think this can answer the professor.
You're doing it,
yes, ocean, it's called Ocean HK.
Okay, Ocean HK.
That's very easy to...
We have just add on to that comment on the 7%. Because there is current technology. If you go to the zero carbon building, and they actually have a system developed by Daniel Chang and his company, in which they actually treat locally. And this system is now being, it actually won the Geneva Award last year. And I think our chief executive gave him, the company, an award as well. And it is actually being used in private developments now, remote in Taipo. And I believe, Daniel said, the Chinese government has actually ordered a large number for their remote places. So if we have only 7%, and this is actually self-contained, all right, and a modular approach, which is very cheap in maintaining. So therefore, maybe we should consider that for 7%.
I think for the remaining 7%, perhaps we may need another approach. So, conveying them into the main trunk. The trunk, I fully understand that, if it is the population distribution is so scattered, that is absolutely not cost effective. But if I don't know whether the government maybe would consider some sort of more proactive approach, for some environmentally sensitive area like Hoya or like some other isolated villages. For example, the Saiwan, the environment is so sensitive, then perhaps the government would like to make use of this packaged sewage treatment plant to collect all this sewage locally and treat it to an acceptable level before discharging to our water body.
I think a question is related to this. In a different village house in quite a dense little area, it's assuming that you want to treat, you want to extend, but you want to cover all these the 7%. There's a reason for this, right? Because the sewage is bad. How bad is it? From the septic tanks, was it due to the soil? What potential health effects are there? People prone to localized septic treatment?
I think the problem we want to extend this 7% is to ensure that it's good.
To do the perfect one.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, then I'll ask you another way. Do you know what's happening to the healthy people in the villages because they use the septic systems?
Is it harmful to the health of the people in the villages at the moment?
I think that put it in another context. Actually, I also in the past used to go out to the villages and to convince them to connect public sewer. It's not an easy task to talk to the old villagers. They will keep saying that I've been using it for 100 years. This is authorized. We have a properly treated septic tank. We do the monthly, we do the quarterly maintenance. Why you ask me to do it again? Why you need me to pay and do it again?
That's not my question. My question is, do you know if there's health effects?
So what is, so I need to convince them what's the added benefit? What are the added benefits to that?
Can I please come in as something of a user of a septic tank?
Yeah.
Right. The septic tanks, people here, you probably haven't got one, you don't understand how they work. This is not a cess kit. What goes in comes out. So we're talking about your pee and your poo, right? Your urine, your feces. They don't stay in there. The heavy stuff, your poo, it sinks. Okay? The liquid rises up and it comes out. Now we have laws in Hong Kong because when the stuff comes out, it's supposed to percolate into the soil. And that's where the bacteria in the soil will break down all the baddies in what's percolating out. And this is why we have step back distances. So if we take Hoi Ha, it's a site of special scientific interest, we have to make sure that there's a 100-metre step back distance so that all the baddies get used up by the bacteria in the soil before it reaches the marine park waters. Now, the law's been broken because EPD says, oh no, well, small house policy, which is the most environmentally damaging way to build because we don't have to comply with building regulations. Is EPD saying, no, we'll allow the septic tank. Our policy is 30 metres. So we had a meeting with the assistant director of EPD, which was a barrister along, and the barrister said, but your policy is unlawful. So EPD is actually breaking the law. So what are we going to do? Our septic tank systems in Hong Kong are really primitive. I have a house in France, in the countryside, and by European Union regulations, I have to have a mini sewage treatment works in my garden. It's really, really amazing. There's nothing like that in Hong Kong. Our septic tanks are hopeless. This is Asia's first city. Probably first city? Forget it. Our septic tank system is appalling. Now, if Hoi Ha Marine Park was a gazetted beach, oh my goodness me, you'd be running all over to make sure we had sewage treatment because of public health. We don't care about E. coli and public health. We care about the coral. We have 64 species of hard stony coral Hoi Ha. It is showing the effects of sewage already. I'll give you an example of this poor female snail now as a penis. We are seeing the effects of the sewage not being handled properly. We have asked for a mini sewage treatment works at Hoi Ha. It's a special case. We don't have many areas with the coral rubbish that we've got there. We are a special case. Therefore, we deserve a mini sewage treatment works. Now, we would only be listened to when we're a gazetted beach. Well, we're more important than a gazetted beach. We were triple SI. And what's happening? Nothing is happening. The excuse was you can't have a mini sewage treatment works because all the villages in the country park all want one. Well, first of all, Hong Kong's healthy. Why the hell not an environmentally sensitive area that we are. We have 960,000 visitors a year to Hoi Park. But are all their pee and poo good? No, we have it handled. Everybody who comes, all their pee and poo. Now we're getting all these mainland Chinese coming. They're sitting at tents at the campsite. We're now finding human excrement on the beach, for goodness sake. The Hoi Har public toilets are 500 metres away from the village. Nobody bothers to go up there. So and okay, so that is the health risk. Because that is the government's only interested about E. coli. That's all they're looking for in the waters. We couldn't care less about E. coli. We're very concerned about the marine environment. And this has to be sorted. We cannot allow sewage to be
I think okay. We have about 9 minutes.
Okay.
3 minutes. Okay, you have a question also.
Yes, I have. I also live in the New Territories, and I'm extremely appreciative of the work you do and the slope protection, and I'm a big fan of the Hong Kong government, actually, in many different ways. But, you know, because they get given a very hard time, and they, I think, make a great job. If you go overseas to almost anywhere, when I travel quite a lot, not as much as I used to because of carbon footprint, but whenever I come back to Hong Kong, I think, my God, I'm lucky to live here. This place is amazing. Okay, so we've been talking next door about how you know, Hong Kong lost its confidence, its self-confidence, and how we can get our confidence back as a city. And we were talking about unique selling points, and one of the things we were talking about was taking all these environmental issues and sustainability issues and becoming a city that specializes in solutions and experimentation that would make us a place that people want to come to again. Because at the moment, actually, mainland Chinese come and they're very welcome. Sorry about the beach, but that's important. But we've got such assets here. People like you guys, specialists, and the slope people. You know, it's really rather unique. They don't have people like that in Singapore because they don't have slopes. The question I want to ask is this: we've got to start thinking outside the box. I don't know what the value is of the food that we bring into Hong Kong every day. And that if you did a carbon footprint costing on what we spend on food every single day, a lot of it flown in, okay? And it just goes down the loo, right? So we're throwing away nutrients on extreme, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars a day, I would guess, that's going down the loo. And you guys deal with that, thank you very much for that. But is there anybody looking at taking those nutrients and recycling them? In the old days, you know, we had the honey pots, and the guys in the farms around me would take the honey pots and use it to water the greens. Now it's illegal, it's terribly dangerous to do that. But the point that they made was that this is, and the same in England where I come from. I remember when I was a kid, you'd get tomato plants growing in the wheat fields because they put sewage on, and of course there was tomato pips in that bucket. So what occurs to me is that we're literally flushing away every day tens of millions of dollars. And the technology exists, other places are doing it on a small scale, taking sewage and recycling it, turning it into a solid, using it as fuel or using it as fertilizer. I think it's probably a legacy of the British because, you know, the Brits are very embarrassed by the two four-letter words. I don't have to spell them. One starts with S and ends with a T, and the other one starts with a D and ends with a D. Death, D and ends with an H. Death and shit. We, the Brits, don't like to talk about that. I think, you know, Cantonese don't have that problem. So you've got no excuse to not be looking at what we can do to make use of that.
You're talking about recycling? Yeah.
Turning it into something useful instead of flushing it away at enormous expense. You've got Stonecutters Island. That should be turned into a factory that's turning the crap into an asset, which it is already. But we're literally throwing away billions of dollars a year. I'd love to see a costing on that. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, this is a big
That's why
question.
you're so important.
Oh, not me, but you.
The green project is so important to keep the fairing or these kinds of things.
This is quite a big issue, and I think this involved with probably the government, different.
Of course, yes, I understand.
But I think that the idea is very good. I have a personal experience that every day we're talking about recycling. My wife so keep the bottles, everyone will throw in the garbage, you pick it up, then wash it, and put it in a plastic bag, newspaper, everything there. Now, China stopped receiving all those materials to do recycling. Everything stopped. It seems like a lot of things are not everything. So basically, you have no place to do recycling. So all this concept, we renounce on mainland to take all this garbage and do it. Why should they stop it? We stop it, we just stock it. Okay, so this is one thing for me. And you see that those papers piled up in the Guangdong, okay, because mainland stopped receiving it. And then let's stop recycling. We don't know how to do this one.
Well, that's okay.
To accept it's wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah, but we should do it.
Okay, but we're in the oceans discussion here.
Okay.
All right, this guy has come back to it.
Robert has something to do. Write it down.
Okay, so you are notes on this. So. I just want to go back to Professor Dai because I asked the question and you gave me the really important point about the hypoxic zone emerging between Macau and Hong Kong. If there was an issue number 2, do you have an issue number 2 which should be, flagged as being a key thing for us to be working on?
No, fundamentally, it's two issues: eutrophication and the sewage and discharge.
And they both cause the
associated with the hypoxia with the ocean acidification, the ecosystem degradation. So what I was talking about, and Joanna as well, the impact the coral reef system and the fishery in the future. I think the main thing I think Hong Kong, the society or government should, I would suggest to transform another level of thinking and of coordination is holistic thinking and ecosystem-based development or blue economy, because like one of the example, for example, the environmental impact assessment. This is a very old marine protection area. Those are very much this isolated approach. But when we deal with, or we try to take advantage from the ocean is really a system. And ocean has life, ocean has the environment, the dynamic, the chemistry. These come together as a system. And this link to the human being. So the mindset we should transfer another level of the approach. And that's also opportunity, I think. This is important. Bottom up, we have the interagency coordination, cooperation, dialogue, and get into a mechanism, new mechanism where we transform into the new century of the blue development, sustainable way.
Can I ask, how do you define an ecosystem? Because I suspect it doesn't fit in with the dotted line that's drawn around the Hong Kong SAR.
Ecosystem is the ecosystem. The different tropical level of life, plus the environment, and then in the coastal system you have to add the human component that is part of the naturally or inevitably become part of the marine ecosystem. So follow to my question. I know you are taking notes, but we can do the private conversation.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the whole holistic approach plus this more emphasize promotion and the ocean literature is needed for the Hong Kong society. We are very much still this land focused or human centered. So this we need to extend. We need to regard the ocean or marine water as part of the Hong Kong society. This is a strong feeling when I see through all this, at least the conference, 2 days conference.
And holistic and bottom up, that is important because now that we address each individual issues without taking care of the big domain and big direction. It seems like the way to do it is the opposite. We need to take care of the ecosystem such that all those individual problems can be better resolved.
Right.
If you do that, you may ignore this one. And this one may also affect that. So it's not quite efficient. So I think this is the thing should maybe taking care of that. Well, I think it is time for lunch, and I believe lunch is in the ground floor of the Chinese restaurant. And thank you very much for your participation, and particularly I'd like to thank 3 speakers, Joanne, Tony, and also thank you very much. 4 speakers. I get free. Okay, thank you, Tony.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
I got something to talk with you for 5 minutes.
So, thank you very much.
The remote monitoring